touchdown! What a run! In the first touchdown of the 12-team playoff!
This is 365 Sports.
Daniels keeps it, and he scores!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Underneath, Smith gets to the corner. Money on the rise. Touchdown, Jeremiah Smith.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Johnson buys some time. There's the tight end again, rumbling towards the end zone, and the touchdown for Anzio.
Remember when you had a guy, someone who could fix anything? They're still out there at Batteries Plus. With their quick solutions and expert advice on batteries, key fobs, and phone repair, Batteries Plus will have you in and out and on your way in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Klubnik's going to take off. Klubnik for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Monday morning, 365 Sports. Craig Smoak with me today. Paul is out, and we have our full throttle with Garrett Ross and Brandon Rowe and Andrew Valade. And you, thank you very much for being a part of it. Some of the chat room is already on your way to whatever you discuss, along with what we have over the next 3 hours. We will have today Phil Bennett at just after 5, Brett McMurphy on 3 at just after 4, and the voice of UCF Athletics and Mark Daniels today will join us at 4:40, and that is one of the horrible story today. And Sean Clark, offensive line coach, was once head coach at Appalachian State. He passed away. The university was Scott Frost and their AD, Terry Mahajer, announcing that he passed away. Sean Clark, a beloved coach and a part of that Scott Frost staff, had a health incident a couple of weeks ago, and he passed away on Sunday evening.
Yeah, Monday morning, huh? That's where we are, Monday morning? Somewhere in Asia, it's, I think, Monday morning. No, it's are they ahead of us? I don't know. But, yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be back, and what a great weekend of football it was, and glad to be with you all. And what's up to chat? Hope y'all are having a good one, but obviously not everybody is. This is, very sad news to kick off the show here, I guess. UCF with a nice win this weekend, but also not everything going perfectly because they're having to mourn one of their own, and this was something that was kind of out there that he was going through, a medical issue, and they kind of talked about it a little bit last week. But, I don't know that there was any anticipation it was going to turn like this or this quickly. I don't know, but, it's very sad, and I'd seen Frost just mention something about it the other day. Other prayers are with him, so very unfortunate, and condolences to his loved ones, and to the program as well.
Well, I remember an interview he did as the head coach when Appalachian State upset A&M in College Station recently, and he was just as excited as you could imagine and proud of his program. On September 9th, he had the medical emergency. You're right, Craig. Frost saying in a statement that he seemed to be in stable condition, just in fact last week, but he passed away Sunday at the age of 50. And his wife, Jonelle, at his side. And so, yes, this is a brutal day for the Big 12 and college football community and those where he coached, including now at UCF. I reached out to Mark Daniels, and I said, hey, if you don't mind, if you're up to it, would you like and could you come on to discuss him? And yes, UCF in their 3-0 start takes the back seat right now. He'll join us today at 4:40. So thoughts and prayers to the entire family of UCF football and the Clark family, too. To football news, Texas Tech did everything that you would like to see them do if, one, you're a Tech fan. If you wanted to see how much their roster had transformed, but you wanted to see it in a different way. I mentioned last week when I felt like they could win, of course they could win, was that I wanted to see a team that defensively won a game. That doesn't mean they didn't make plays. Of course, Will Hammond, the backup, came in and was brilliant. But Texas Tech was the better team. They went into the belly of the beast in Utah. They played, in some ways, better than Utah plays their own game and winning the game, and a great start. Joey McGuire will join the show this week. And here is his quote after the game. There's a lot written about the cost of the roster. I challenge anybody to have a closer locker room. It shows up in tight games. That, of course, after their win against Utah.
Yeah, it was a great win. I mean, it was very impressive, and they left no doubts about it. A lot of talk about that game last week, and didn't quite live up to the back and forth that we hoped for just as neutral fans, but it definitely lived up to all the hype if you were a Texas Tech fan, and certainly did not if you were a Utah fan. I mean, competitive, close there throughout. I think, part of that, Texas Tech just simply shooting itself in the foot with penalties early on, for example, turnover fest in the first half, and just kind of a sloppy, low-scoring game that I think was definitely for anybody who was hoping to be just like wildly entertained. You weren't necessarily that early on in that game, but in that second half, it was Texas Tech just taking the reins and running away with it and blowing it open by the end. And at one point said, if this game wasn't played in Salt Lake City, this would be a blowout. And 20 minutes later, it was a blowout. So it was funny because I said that, and a Utah fan got very defensive about me being impressed by Texas Tech and, get off their jock or stop glazing them or whatever. It's like, dude, I understand you're in your feelings right now because y'all are getting your asses kicked. But that was really impressive, and that's why everybody was talking about Tech. It wasn't glazing Tech or anything like that. It was that by the end of that game, they left absolutely no doubt about this widely talked about and contested matchup, who the better team was. Not even a question. They did it at their place, rolled in there in the morning time, which nobody was looking forward to doing, but left in the afternoon with a big bunch of smiles on that plane ride back home, I'd imagine, because, they went in there and did their thing. And, there was some different parts of that game we didn't anticipate, like Baron Morton being injured and Will Hammond coming in and doing what he did. But, I was just mightily impressed by Texas Tech's defense. You talk about the money they've spent. That clearly showed up in that game. But so did, for example, the cohesiveness as well. I mean, being there in front of what was a raucous crowd, Tech never seemed like they were rattled, always seemed super confident, never let the mistakes kind of snowball on them, didn't let that just sidetrack. They just kept their heads down and kept playing football, and they've got a lot of talent. And that was ultimately like, When I was talking about this game last week, like we made picks on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I said at the time, I was like, I don't know. And I said on Thursday, I'm waffling on this game. I said on Friday, I'm waffling on this game. On our My Office pool picks, I picked Texas Tech because by the end of the week, when I had thought about it some more, I picked Tech because I just felt like, man, I don't know like how Utah matches the explosiveness. And you watch that game, and they didn't. They didn't have the explosiveness that Texas Tech has, particularly on offense. So there's a lot we can take out of this game and take from this game and talk about from this game. But most of all, just highly impressed by Texas Tech. They deserve the love. They went and walked the walk. They won a big game on the road. They deserve, to be where they are, if not a little bit higher in the rankings. And I think they are the favorite right now in the Big 12. I think that there are also programs like TCU that are going to be in that mix, along with maybe BYU and some others, Iowa State, obviously. But, Texas Tech deserves the love. They went and did their thing this weekend, and it was very impressive.
Well, they forced an early turnover. Anytime you're on the road, you need to, or you would like to make some kind of a play to kind of send a message. They got the fumble. You saw the dynamic freshman in Jacoby Williams from a little 2A school in Beckville, Texas, in the east part of this state, and he turned it into a long gain. They jumped out. They were the better team. And Texas Tech, of course, they punted, on the first drive. And then Tech was just better across the board. And you should enjoy it because it wasn't, if they would have won a shootout 50-42 or something, you could still enjoy it. But this is what they built with Shill Wood, the defensive coordinator from Houston. You could see this is a team that can win in different ways. They had a lot of yards passing. Hammonds, we saw, Craig, Will Hammonds in high school. We've mentioned that before at Huddle a couple of different times. And he was fantastic. Great dual threat. He can do it. But poor Baron Morton. He's going to be okay. Joey said he should be available. Obviously, they have an off week. But Will Hammonds, to me, gives them an extra oomph. And he showed that in that game against Utah.
Yeah, no S on the end. Hammond.
Yeah.
Will Hammond is who we saw in high school.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was a very electric dual-threat player back then at Hutto, and he got his opportunity and took full advantage of it, played as perfectly as a guy could play in that situation, tough on the road, big-time defense, and he came in and lit it up. And we've heard for a couple of off seasons now that if something were to happen to Baron Morton, which, the percentages say that there probably will be at some point in time, unfortunately for him, and that struck again on Saturday. Although, like you said, good news is it's not anything long-term, but he got his opportunity, and he went and showed the world what everybody's been talking about in those football offices and what has trickled out from time to time when we've had listeners reach out and say, hey, man, Will Hammond's the guy that they're building the future around. That's the guy who's the real talent. That's the guy who's, probably in some people's opinion should have been QB number 1 to start the season. So that's not a new conversation by any means, but it's the first time we've seen him in a situation like this with this type of spotlight. And he took home the Oscar. If he was on stage doing a play, he got the Tony. I mean, he got that spotlight on him, and he performed about as well as you can. 13 of 16, 2 TDs, but really it was the running ability that is just a totally different dynamic from what Baron Morton brings and makes them a way, way more dangerous team with that as an added threat for a defense to have to prepare for. Played with a ton of confidence and, just looked great, and now creates a quarterback controversy, I think, in Lubbock, Texas, because after seeing that, I think most reactions were, this dude should be the starter moving forward. Like, it's not even about Baron Morton being injured. This guy just looks better, and they look like a more dangerous offense with him there. So they've fortunately got some time to kind of soak this win up and then worry about those kinds of decisions, here in the next few days. But I am very intrigued by what they decide to do, because Baron Morton is the guy who they've kind of said is like, hey, he's the guy, and he's the older guy, and we're very excited about Will Hammond, and he's going to be great for us, but it has been Baron Morton as QB1. So do you keep rolling with him if he's healthy and checked out, or do you say, hey, man, this guy gives us a totally different look, and we're a better football team potentially? That's why Joey gets paid the big bucks, but I'm very interested to see what that whole situation looks like. And the good news is you're not forced into that situation. I mean, like you said, Baron will be back. But Will Hammond looked great, and he was, I think, the player most talked about coming out of that game, without a doubt.
Yeah, we saw him up close in 2 shootout games. He lost, but put up huge numbers, and he's got that ability to run that like zone read and throw it out sidearm or whatever. But he was huge for them in a game on the road, to do it on the road against Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great crowd there, but I feel like Tech absorbed that. They absorbed the penalties early on. They absorbed the turnovers, the sloppiness early on. They absorbed the injury to Baron Morton. I mean, they just took it all in stride and kept playing, and their talent shone through. And I think all the guys you went and invested in, whether it be players or coaches, did their thing on Saturday. I mean, they had a wide makeover there with the coordinator position, both guys being brand new. And Shieldwood, if Will Hammond was the most talked about player from Saturday, then Shieldwood was like number 2 on the personalities most talked about, I think, coming out of Saturday. But that Tech defense was talked about a lot, and deservedly so. They played really, really well against a Utah offense, as we'll get to, that looked partly because of Texas Tech very pedestrian, but also because they're just the Utah offense, and they played a team that's got a little bit of a challenge for them, as opposed to what we now know about UCLA and who else Utah had played up to that point. We'll get on the Utah side of things, but no taking anything away from Texas Tech. They went out there and by the end of it had kicked Utah's ass and done it in Utah-like fashion. And that was eye-opening and just probably confirming for some people who kind of already felt they were the best team, or they were going to go in there and do their thing. Like I saw that, Chris Level thought there was a chance that they'd go in there, and I think the word he used was thump Utah, and they did. He was right about them maybe going in there and doing that. He didn't say, like, this is going to happen, but he thought that there was a chance, and he turned out to be right. 10-3 at halftime, and you felt like Texas Tech should have been up by much more. But Utah had their chance and could do absolutely nothing to close the gap, really, as they just had Hammond come in there and, exploded that scoreboard there in the fourth quarter, to the point of you go from close game to embarrassing loss in a matter of minutes. And that was super impressive.
So there we are with that. And that's the game we lead with, because that was the one the Big 12. Other teams won. We'll have a a much more in-depth look at the rest of the conference. Arizona State, the defending champions, winning on the road. We'll get into that. And also where it leaves Dave Aranda, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. All of that we'll get to here on the show. Oklahoma at home. At times it was kind of a rainstorm. The defense swarmed all throughout Jackson Arnold. Look at all the disruptive stats. It still came down to a banger, still came down to a call that was discussed by the SEC, but they were all in the business of Auburn. 10 sacks, 24 overall tackles behind the line of scrimmage, counting the sacks, pass breakups, quarterback pressures, losses of yards, sack yards, and Oklahoma State, even after all of that, Oklahoma, after all of that, they had to hang on to beat Auburn. It was a nice win for OU, nice win for Venables, and it was also showing that Auburn is pretty good. And they, of course, play Texas A&M this weekend. This weekend.
I think it validates Auburn that they're on the right track and that they're a pretty good football team. That's the one thing you can take away. I think you take away a lot of grumbling under your breath and a lot of pissed off attitudes from the way that game was officiated. Some big calls that go the Sooners' way. But as an OU fan, you'll take it. And that was a massive win for Brent Venables and puts him in a really nice spot now. 1 month into the season with Texas looming here in the not too distant future, but obviously got to handle your business week to week. But I thought that Oklahoma's defense was nasty. I do think they also should partially credit Jackson Arnold for the number of sacks and the numbers of tackles for loss. I think, part of that was just the defense being pretty good. I also think lack of awareness on his part at times can create a lot of those situations where he's taking sacks when he shouldn't be. But nevertheless, OU's defense is definitely pretty salty. And despite some, big plays by the Auburn wide receivers, they were able to crack open, a couple times. But I thought that, that was a great day for Oklahoma football and for Brent Venables, and a win that is somewhat controversial. I don't think we bogged down in it and never let us live this weekend down like the rest of the way. You don't just sit there and keep dwelling on the Auburn no call or, you have to specify which one. But, it was not the best day for officiating. And Paxton, our resident UT fan, reached out to me. He's like, I know you'll tell the truth. What do you think of the officiating? I was like, I thought it was piss poor overall. But certainly if you're an Auburn fan, you have every right to be very angry after that game. I mean, there's some big no calls that definitely played into the outcome of that game, including a touchdown. When you look at the final score, a full-blown touchdown that should not have counted. Pass interference there at the end that's not called as you're closing in on the end zone. So Oklahoma very fortunate to get, I don't know if home cooking is how you would describe it, but they also played really well in some areas, and I think that's a big-time win that propels them forward into feeling like they're very much back to where they should be. But Auburn, I wouldn't hang my head too much if I was them. They were in that game. One or two things go differently. Win that game on the road in Norman, which is what's upsetting, is that you didn't, and you had the opportunity to, and not everything was even in your control. But nevertheless, you move on, and I think Auburn will be fine, and I think Oklahoma definitely feels great about where they are.
Well, Auburn was impressive too. I kept waiting for there to be a little bit of separation. There really never was. The one play that was a couple of them under discussion, including the receiver that was uncovered. The SEC released a statement, and the officiating, they said, should have caught that. That was against the rules to hide a player during a substitution or not. I do know that I read something earlier today from a couple of writers who cover college football that OU's coaches apparently discussed the play with the officiating group, but still, whether it's with the rules or not, that was a play that got a lot of attention in that moment too.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC said in their statement it was widely discussed during the offseason that they had talked about this very type of thing, and so I don't know what the official's explanation was, and especially if they were sitting there telling the Oklahoma coaches or getting it cleared, but that play should not have been allowed. It should have been a penalty. And the no simulated replacements, you had Satagna acting like he was checking out and then just hung by the sideline, and nobody noticed it until it was too late. So they're saying that they didn't properly interpret the action as a hideout tactic. I don't know what you were interpreting it as then, but they didn't interpret it correctly. So chalk one up to bad officiating. I know that wasn't the only complaint from Auburn in that game, but There
was a
move
fumble.
forward.
Was it a fumble or not? They returned it. Yeah,
there was that. There was
again. There's so many times.
Right.
There were a couple of big plays, and then you let that become what the game is about rather than the game itself.
Well, but I mean, if you're an Auburn fan and there's like three plays that are pretty big and a one-score loss on the road, you can understand why they're upset. But yeah, we don't dwell on officiating here. But I'm hearing the other side, and I understand where they're coming from.
That's why we brought it up. Yeah,
the non-call when you've got Cam Coleman wrapped up at the waist.
Yep.
I mean that. I could not believe there wasn't a flag for that one. I was like, my jaw was on the floor, but I was like, okay, I'll take it. But I can't believe they didn't throw the flag anyways. Yeah, that was wrong. But hey, OU got away with one, I guess, and they finished the job. Their defense played really, really well. You know, Mateer made some plays when they needed him to most. Still can't run the ball for squat, and don't know if they'll really be able to at all the rest of this year because it's not like the competition is ever going to like ease up all that much. But they were able to sling it a little bit, and Mateer is a guy who, as you saw in that game, can be a lot of fun, can also be kind of all over the place. You know, you kind of reel him in, but that's part of like the Wild West fun of his game. Very much like a Mayfield, type of guy where there's highlights, and then there's also those highlights can be lowlights very easily. But it comes with the territory, and he's very entertaining and fun to watch.
He just doesn't grab his junk when he's across the field. All right, so there we are with Oklahoma and Auburn. And then there was a team that thought they were ready, which they've thought this for now way too long. Michigan bullied Nebraska. 30-27 is not indicative of the score. Michigan had a 16-play, 77-yard drive. That's kind of old school, but look at the time. 8 minutes, 46 seconds to take the lead with 4 minutes left when Nebraska had pulled within a field goal, and then they separated again. They did that a lot. They ran it down their throat, nearly 300 yards rushing. Nebraska has now lost 28 consecutive games against teams ranked in the AP top 25. Not even when somebody like plays horrible and turns it over 5 times as they won one of those games. They didn't. I picked Michigan from the beginning this last week, and the reason why is until I see them actually do it, then I won't believe it. And 28 consecutive losses now. There was a damning quote from Biff Poggi, Michigan's interim coach. I know, remember they had the Hail Mary at halftime that tied the game up, and you're like, physically, it was 17-17, but physically we're beating the snot out of them. And we're turning this into a heavyweight fight, and that's going to be our big advantage in the second half. And sure enough, it was, and a nice win for Biff Poggi and for Michigan without Sharon Moore, and also yet another loss. Matt Rule today, when he had his press conference, mentioned to his team, showed them 40-plus plays that were possible difference makers in that game at certain times of the game, down in distance, whatever. He said, do not fall for the negative. You're just a couple of plays away, because he showed 45 plays that could have been a difference, at least at some point in that game. I like what he's saying. Don't think you're a couple of plays away. You're much further than that.
Okay, yeah. At first, I was like, if you're not a couple plays away, it sounds like you're 45 plays away. So, okay, now I understand the messaging when you said it again. I guess you feel validated because you got that pick right. I felt like this is a prime opportunity for Nebraska to finally break that streak and to win a big game at home against a big ranked opponent, and was totally wrong on that. Not the worst miss of the weekend. I had to think of the worst miss of a pick 'em I've had maybe ever in my entire life.
Me too.
Honestly, with a game we'll get to later. But yeah, this one, I felt like Nebraska, just give them the benefit of the doubt that they can go and do their thing, but they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, and they won't get the benefit of the doubt from me again. You know, I did sit there and go watch them lose to an Illinois team at home last year in person, and felt like at some point this thing's got to run out, but here we are, still talking about this streak of not just Nebraska, but Matt Rule against ranked opponents in many ways.
He had 2 wins at ranked opponents, against ranked opponents, when he was at Temple.
So,
and none since then.
They're perfect for each other in that way.
Yeah.
They're both in dire need of some ranked wins. But yeah, Michigan just bullied them. I mean, Michigan absolutely bullied them, and that's what I was surprised by. I didn't think that Nebraska was just going to get bullied that way. And I know there were maybe some signs of that. I just felt like, okay, a Matt Rule team can lose by getting outscored or something, but I don't think they're going to get out-toughed or out-muscled or what have you.
Physical,
and
yeah.
They did.
Yep.
And Bryce Underwood had some nice moments in that game, but really it was just about the big play for Michigan. I mean, Nebraska contained them for large portions of that game, but it would be like the big run.
75 yards after they had come back to tie it, or what, 60-something yards after they had come back and pulled it with a 3 and tied it. They just both sides, and they were all in Raiola's business too, in dominating the defensive line.
Michigan got the scoring started, but then after his 3-0, 37-yard run by Bryce Underwood. Later on, 75-yard run by Justice Haynes. Later on, 54-yard run by Jordan Marshall, and all the rest was field goals. So, that was the difference. He gave up 3 massive explosive scores in that game, and you lost by 3. So that's the part where, you're 45 plays away and you do this a little bit better, but you can't give up 3 huge chunk plays like that. And credit to Michigan. That was really impressive for them to roll in there, knowing the atmosphere, and going out there and just being physical and explosive, and sitting there with an interim coach, not letting that affect them in any way whatsoever. So credit to the Wolverines. And if you're a Nebraska fan, you just wonder, when does it end? When do they finally get that big win? But man, it's just not coming.
Last time I saw them actually win a game, and it was against a team that was somewhat of a fraud, was Deion's second year at Colorado when they played at home and they bullied them. But since that time, you miss a field goal early. They've done that 100 times in the last 10 years. Michigan dominated that game, no matter the score at the end. And when it was a 3rd and 2, a guy would be in trouble 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, break a tackle. It was Michigan. Good for them. Great win for Biff Poggi. And he said, I can't wait to get home and hand the keys to Sharon Moore. He takes back over that team coming up this week.
Well, they had the loss on downs to start the game off, and then missed field goal,
had
interception.
A beautiful drive down to the 5, 4th and about 1 yard, and they come up a half a yard short. And then you're right. Then they miss a field goal.
Then they throw a pick.
Then it was it's who they are. That's what they've been, and they've been that way for quite some time.
That was how they started. What are your feelings on Raiola? Like, what are your feelings at this point?
I forget about any comparisons or whatever. I saw that in the chat about Mahomes. Here's the deal. That's stupid. Anything, no matter whatever he does.
That's about him more or less like copying.
Enough of an athlete to be a really good college quarterback. Bobby Stroop, as you know, he trains Patrick Mahomes. I texted him yesterday, Saturday. Raiola's not going to break a tackle in the backfield. He's not going to sprint away and go 25. Don't expect him to be who he's not, but it does seem like he does need to get bigger and stronger and quicker. That doesn't mean put on more than 5 pounds. I think he's really good when everything's comfortable. Who's not? When you're driving down the highway, there's nobody in front of you or behind you to the right and left. Of course you are. I think he's good, but he's not a guy that there's not much difference in who he is this year compared to last year.
Yeah, I just was wondering, because I've never been like over the moon about him. I see the raw talent, the throwing ability, and things like that, but just in terms of like the big game performances and just kind of leading the way, I've never got that it factor with him. And the Mahomes thing, that's not even so much about his style of play, other than when he tries to mimic Patrick Mahomes. It's about his mannerisms and his clothing and his haircut and like everything but the actual play on the field in some ways. And that's the part that's kind of weird for everybody following along. But nevertheless, I know he's like a big time quarterback, and they went all in on him. But yeah, he just has not risen to the occasion the way that a guy who wants to be looked at as a Patrick Mahomes needs to rise to the occasion. He's a far cry from that at this point.
They may not even play another ranked team for another 5 or 6 weeks based on who they have, but don't expect them to run any tables because of that. They're just in that mediocre range, and maybe they'll be a little bit better by the end. I don't see it. The Associated Press poll, by the way, we're going to go game for game and get deep into the Big 12 in the 4 o'clock hour. Again, Brett McMurphy will join us at 4, and then we'll also hear from Mark Daniels and then Phil Bennett today. Here is the new Associated Press Top 25 poll, and with this, we can bring up some other games. For example, Miami, they jumped 2 after a very nice, methodical win. It was at times a little ugly, but they found a way, and Billy Napier loses another game. 2 jump. They jump Penn State and LSU in the standings. Meanwhile, if you look, it's the highest ranking, by the way, for, let's see, the highest ranking for Miami since back in November of 2017, where I think they were 9 or 10-0, and then they lost 3 consecutive games. The U, right outside number 1 Ohio State, was off, and the Hurricanes beat the Florida Gators in what was, again, a methodical win for them.
Yeah, that was a nice win for the Canes, and there was a lot of discussion last week about them being behind the likes of Penn State and LSU, who at this point not really proven as much. And it's funny, I saw a tweet going viral. You mentioned the not playing ranked teams thing, and somebody made the comment about how like Texas Tech's not going to play. It was an SEC homer, of course, that was making a comment about the Big 12 and not playing any ranked teams. And it's just funny because every week we're having these conversations about how off the AP rankings are. So when convenient, we cite it as gospel when it works for us. But in reality, when we're not trying to make a point to pick on somebody else, we're all making fun of it and saying that it sucks and that it needs to be better. But I think they were hearing some of that outside criticism, the voters, and they made a move like pushing Miami up. Florida, good Lord, what a dumpster fire situation that's turning into. You knew there was the potential there. Like they had all of the ingredients for that to be the case, but nobody could have foreseen DJ Lagway's struggles being this extreme. Certainly there was a lot of talk this offseason about him not being healthy, not being able to work out with his wide receivers and the team and the offense and all of that the way that you would have liked it for him to have been able to do during the offseason. But I don't think anybody foresaw, even if you predicted struggles, like the level to which, they're struggling along. Yep. So Miami keeps on cruising. They've got a bunch of NFL dudes on their lines, and they're winning up front. And Carson Beck, I think, I actually had to turn around and give him a little more credit because somebody who was not just all in on him right away. This is not a game where you point to and you go like, oh, Carson Beck was awesome in this game. But I think he's been good for them leading into this. But this was one where he's going to have some other big performances, but you really know that Miami's going to win with their talent on the fronts, and they're special there, and they've got other great players as well. But that's really where they're magic right now. And so, yeah, they're in a good spot, and I think the move up is deserved. If you're going off of resumes and not the preseason rankings, which again was one of the big wide complaints over these past few weeks as these polls started to get unveiled. I think you're seeing the voters react to outside criticism. I do. And I think this might be one of those moves where you see that directly. It also could be, hey, they beat Florida, an SEC team, so they deserve to jump up. But that was one of the moves that was discussed prior to this past weekend's games was, hey, why is Miami behind LSU and Penn State? Based on what? They had beaten Notre Dame already. I guess now they needed to see them beat Florida. So, yeah, they absolutely deserve the number 2 spot right now.
All right, so there you are. There's the top 5. Go 6-10, a couple of nuggets. Oklahoma, first time since a couple of years ago that they were in the top 10 when they started that year. I think they were 7-0, and it didn't end all that well. Texas Tech at 12. That's the highest they've been since Cliff Kingsbury was the head coach there in 2013. They've earned that jump. Indiana moved up 8. My God, I had a good week when it comes to predictions. I should not be able to host the show, but then I would get days off because I absolutely flunked that test. Not surprised Indiana won the game, but they embarrassed Brett Bielema and Illinois. I mean, embarrassed them in what was so impressive for Kurt Cignetti, and the Hoosiers.
Yeah, that was a game that I got completely wrong. And I said at the time, with a couple of times we talked about it, I had no real feel for that game. And I was shooting in the dark basically. And definitely should have done more, I guess, investigating into that game because that wasn't just wrong. It was as wrong as a human can possibly be because that was not ever at one point even a competitive football game, really. I mean, and it was absolutely no doubt. There was absolutely no doubt by the end of who was clearly the better team. So, yeah, Indiana surges up 8 spots. That's completely deserved now. 4-0. You can't say they haven't played anybody because they just beat a top 10 team by 53 points. So, yeah, I felt like blind throwing a dart at that game last week just because it's not really our wheelhouse. Like, it's one thing to talk Ohio State, Nebraska, Big Ten. It's another thing to get Illinois, Indiana. And so I'll know better next time. That's for damn sure.
Let me tell you something. Remember last year when they started well in Nebraska and they beat the crap out of Matt Rule in Nebraska? That was worse. A game on Saturday. They have Iowa on the road and then Oregon on the road coming up. And, I mean, That was impressive what Cignetti did. I got a note about him maybe a little bit later in the headlines or in the 4 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I mean, he made a comment in passing at his press conference, I think, about how the game this weekend is going to be much tougher than the game last weekend. Clearly, they took that personal, and they got their ducks in a row, and they were ready to just beat the crap out of Illinois, and that's what they did. And so, yeah, I think Cignetti is a fun character for college football. He's a guy that fits the mold of these kind of wacky coaching characters that we get from time to time. And so he's definitely one of those guys in 2025, but he's also a hell of a football coach. He's done incredible things there at Indiana in a very short amount of time. I mean, obviously guys had success throughout his career, but to take a program that's just kind of an afterthought if you're not in that region and turn them into like this buzzsaw is really impressive, and I just wonder where he can take it ultimately. But, yeah, he got a cracking on Illinois, and they do have those 2 road games coming up the rest of the way. I mean, we'll see about Michigan State. They just lost to USC on Saturday night, but UCLA you have no fear about.
Yeah.
At Maryland, at Penn State eventually as well, Wisconsin, at Purdue. But, yeah, I mean, you're at least looking at these next couple of weeks being very testy, and then Penn State later on.
Right.
But the Hoosiers looked great. I felt so stupid as that game was going on about just how wrong I was on that. Again, I don't think I've ever been as wrong on a pick as on that pick right there.
If you did a plus-minus on the final score compared to what just missing the game, you can't get any worse.
No, it was bad, but I mean they deserve any bump up they get, if not even more so. I disagree with Illinois still being ranked. How do you get beat by 53 points and you still are a top 25 team? How the hell are you ranked? You should be booted out just because you lost by 53
lost earlier
points.
this year in a game that was somewhat close, remember? And they went from like 11 or 12 to out of the top 25.
Yeah, I mean, it's not apples to apples because everybody played like one game at that point. So you're 0-1 or you're 0-2 or 1-1 and 2-0. So there's a lot of teams that are in a crowded, like more trafficked kind of argument there. Whereas here we've had a bunch of teams take losses at this point, and I understand that was their first, and I understand there's this idea, kind of like the way that the preseason rankings are baked in, and we're like, what? Don't worry about the preseason rankings, even though we see how they influence the damn storylines throughout the first few weeks of the season. That's why people get pissed off about the preseason top 25. But I've seen, well, you can't drop them all the way from where they were to all the way out. Sure as hell, yeah, you can. You know what would be a good reason to do that? Getting beat by 53 freaking points. That's a good reason to knock them out of the top 25.
But, yeah, and again, like I said, at Arizona State, there had only been a couple of games, but they went from 12 to gone.
Yeah, they were out.
Gone,
I mean,
gone.
And that's where you're like, well, where are the biases all these people talk about? Example, A, right there.
SMU.
You lost by 53 points
Yep.
in a conference game, and you're in the top 25, and Indiana's not even the highest-ranked team in the league. They're not even the second highest-ranked team in the league. They're not even the freaking third highest-ranked team in the league.
Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon are in front of them.
They're the fourth highest-ranked Big Ten team, and they beat you by 53, and you're still in the top 25. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Like, the voters clearly heard criticisms, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty much it's 16 through 20. Again, Michigan bumped up a little bit. Vandy put up 70 in their game, which I thought would be somewhat competitive. It was not. Now, TCU inside along with BYU. BYU's been in and out over the last, half a year or so. TCU, first time since they had that magical year that was ended by Georgia thumped in the championship game. They're inside. They were ranked 17th in the 2023 preseason poll after the year before when they lost in the championship game. Nice win for TCU against SMU. And unfortunately, that rivalry, like I said, even last week, is probably, unless it's a playoff game, is over.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, even the people who know of the history said on our radio show last week of like how many people are really going to care ultimately. Like TCU is the one making the call. So I'm sure there's a batch of their fans that care about that. They have buddies that go to SMU or whatever. SMU clearly cares. And Brett Lashley had like a long comment in his post-game press conference about them not playing anymore. So he's clearly a little bit perturbed by it and probably mostly perturbed by the loss. But I think obviously the Indiana move was huge as well. But you had Texas dropping a couple spots despite the blowout of Sam Houston. I think that was some recorrecting from the last couple of weeks where they were also one of those teams that was pointed out as like, why are they so high? What have they done to this point? And so then they drop them, but they drop them after they go and look like the best they have all season. Granted, against its inferior competition, but Tech jumped up 5. I don't know if you mentioned that. So they're borderline top 10.
I just mentioned that it's the highest they've been since 2013 with Kingsbury, the head coach.
They're borderline top 5. So they're getting attention now. They're getting the attention that they deserve after that win over Utah. You know, whoever won that game was going to start to get that rub from being the new face of the Big 12 contenders, and certainly Tech is getting that, and they deserve it after the way that they played on Saturday. So I don't think it'll be any surprise to see them in the top 10 here pretty soon, because you'll have a lot of these Big 10 and SEC schools that start playing each other. But that was notable, obviously. Iowa State drops a couple of spots, just sitting back on their bye. More about, I think, Ole Miss and what people think of them, and a Texas Tech and obviously in Indiana, than that was about Iowa State. But there was that tweet I talked about from the SEC honk that was out there about Texas Tech doesn't play another ranked team for the rest of the year. Well, now they do, because BYU's on number 25. So it was right for about a day and a half, but you got to let this thing play out, because the rankings aren't set in stone. And we're still very much weeding out the preseason rankings now at this point. So they do play BYU. Now, granted, BYU loses a game, they're going to drop right back out. So they have to maintain being inside the rankings for that to hold true. Tech does not play TCU, so that's not part of the equation there. They don't play Iowa State in the regular season either. So they got a fortunate draw in that way, and I do think their schedule is pretty favorable moving forward, because there are games like going to Manhattan that don't look nearly as dangerous as they did before. But you got BYU on there as of right now. I could see, I don't know if it'll happen in a couple of weeks, but maybe Kansas could slide in there at one point. Arizona State, maybe by the end of the year, they're back in there. But I don't know if that'll happen in the next 3 weeks when they play them. And then after that, I mean, I don't know. I think it would take a lot for UCF. It's not happening for West Virginia. It's not happening for K-State. It's not happening for Oklahoma State. So, yeah, there's only so many opportunities. But, yeah, BYU at 25, they deserve that. TCU definitely deserves 24. I do think they've become like the G6 placeholder of like, we don't know where to put them. Let's put them at 24 and 25. Yeah. How does TCU not deserve to be above Illinois?
Yeah, no, I get it.
How does BYU not deserve to be above? Have they lost by 53 points in conference play?
Well, have they lost?
No. Much less have they lost by 53 points in conference play. So get Illinois the hell out of there, or put them at 25, but to have them in front of TCU and BYU is a slap in the face. So those two teams,
and
I
it would
think,
be a slap in the face no matter what logo was at 24.
Yeah, but that's who's there. So I say them. But yeah, that's a slap in the face that you're 4-0 and you're beating teams, and you're behind somebody who just lost by 53 points. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Well, nevertheless, I think the more representation for the league, the better if you're the Big 12. So now you've got a couple of newbies that hopefully will stick around for a while, and they don't cannibalize each other and then just knock each other out of the top 25 every week, to where you don't have a nice resume of top 25 opponents. So we'll see if they can hang around a little bit.
Had KU just not fallen asleep in that 21-6 lead against Mizzou, who's 20, then maybe they would be around. Look at the week of bangers. Top 25 games. USC at Illinois on Fox, LSU, Ole Miss in Oxford, and then Oregon at third-ranked Penn State in a great banger. That's on NBC Saturday night. Then Alabama, Georgia on ABC coming up. I don't know, the number's not next to Georgia, and it should be. Alabama at Georgia. That game, of course, the top 25 banger, Georgia at number 5. And then there's near bangers. Auburn at A&M. Ohio State on the road at Washington. Indiana at Iowa. And then the Tennessee game against what right now is 4-0. Jeff Levy and Mississippi State are unbeaten. Tennessee will travel to Starkville this weekend.
Again, ridiculous Illinois is ranked, but now I know what's going to happen is they're going to win this game to then just solidify themselves inside the top 25. USC will fall to like 24 or 25. I can see it happening.
I think
now.
The loser of that game's gone. If it's Illinois, they're gone. If it's USC, maybe because it's USC, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see if that actually happens. But yeah, I mean, this should definitely be USC ranked versus an unranked Illinois. I know that there's some random Illinois fan chiming in. They think I'm like the biggest hater of all time. I would say this about anybody. I am mad at them in the fact that I was stupid enough to pick them, and I got that way wrong. But that's a great opportunity though for Brett Bielema and the Illini to try and bounce back. That is a great opportunity.
Yep.
And almost you love that they're playing a ranked USC at home on a Saturday morning. I don't know how much you love the 11 a.m., but you love the opportunity to get that bad taste out of your mouth from the loss to the Hoosiers. So that's certainly an important one in the Big Ten. I think LSU fans are probably a little bit nervous rolling into Ole Miss because I think the Rebs look really good right now. And LSU, I think the jury's still out. I mean, had a better performance this past weekend, a little sharper than last time we saw them. Nussmeier had a good game. But, yeah, Ole Miss is definitely one of those teams that's rising a little bit. Oregon, Penn State will be awesome. Alabama, Georgia should be awesome. And then, yeah, the near bangers. Auburn, I don't think is deserving based on, I guess, where they are right this very moment.
The thing about Auburn is you wonder if they start to have a wear and tear factor.
Yeah,
their schedule, that's a tough game anyway.
I can see where they're coming from and not being ranked right now, but I do think that's a really tough team who's very good. I don't know. I just think that they're it's kind of like Utah, where they don't have that oomph, that alternative oomph on offense, right? They're kind of, you can make them sort of one-dimensional at times. Granted, Jackson Arnold can hit the big throw to a receiver on occasion. But, yeah, I don't know if they'll have enough artillery for Texas A&M, if that makes sense. Whereas with A&M, I feel like they've got all of the weapons.
No, I don't think Auburn, I would not pick them to win the game, but they just went into Norman and lost by a 7.
No, they lost in controversial fashion depending on who you talk to. So, I'm not saying they don't have weapons. I don't think they're as fully fleshed out as A&M is.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. They have weapons. They clearly have weapons.
OU, 9th-ranked A&M, 5th-ranked Georgia, and then Missouri. And that, of course, later in the year. So they've got 4 consecutive games, Auburn. This is the second of the 4. And this one, of course, on the road, too. That's also being on the road and being on the road going back into the state, or it was Oklahoma going into Texas.
Yeah, that ought to be a great game there at Kyle Field. Ohio State, Washington. I mean, I'm not really ready to give Washington just the rub right now, but they do have a fun quarterback, and that's a big road test for Ohio State. Indiana, Iowa, that ought to be really interesting because Indiana is just putting up points like crazy, and Iowa is usually quite the opposite and quite stingy defensively. And then Tennessee, has to be on alert for the Bulldogs because of the big showcase there a couple weeks ago that kind of opened people's eyes to playing in Starkville and them knocking off Arizona State. So, I think the Vols are going to be walking into the danger zone potentially. So that's certainly another one that'll be fun this weekend to see how it plays out.
We will have fun throughout the day today. Get Brett McMurphy's take on a lot of this. How about this? Here are the teams in college football who have beaten a current ranked team. Here's the list. It's not very long. These are the ones who have beaten at least one team who is currently ranked: Florida State, Georgia, Indiana, Miami, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. Florida State beat Alabama. Georgia beat, who would that have been? LSU. Indiana,
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Miami, Notre Dame. And then also, Florida's not ranked. Ohio State beat Texas in that opening banger. Oklahoma just beat Auburn. And then A&M, of course, with the win on the road against Notre Dame.
Yeah, but Auburn's not ranked anymore. So they beat a ranked team, though. Currently ranked teams, are they ranked in the coaches poll? But they beat Michigan, so that's who they're probably talking about.
Okay,
they beat Michigan, so that's who they're talking about. You said Auburn, though.
No, they
Auburn's
beat Michigan, who's ranked. Yeah, that's right. But those are the only ones. There's not a lot of them. Now, of course, that list will start to grow a little bit. And then even some on that list could drop off because of the fact that team that's ranked, like Auburn, who's not a part of this list, actually, when I brought him up. But as someone that falls away from the top 25, somebody could then fall off of that list. So there we are with the teams ranked so far who have beaten a team ranked currently after this past weekend. Big 12 had a good, quiet, at times maybe not spectacular, but their record against Power 4 opponents this year, the SEC strong at the top at 10-3. They tied the best non-conference Power 4 record since 2002 with an 8-6 start and 6-1 against the ACC with that TCU win against SMU.
Yeah, it's really, I think, something that will be fascinating if it comes into play there during playoff discussion and you're down to an ACC team or a Big 12 team, and you're not talking champions, but you're talking the who gets a second team or a third team in maybe. And I think in the case of the Big 12, I don't really feel like there's much room for a third team at the moment. It would be probably a second team, and you could even be pushing that. The ACC, we'll see. They have a couple of brands, obviously there with Miami leading the way, that they'll get more of a benefit of the doubt, and Florida State as well. I'm just saying, like, one of them is Miami, so they'll get the benefit of the doubt, whereas I don't feel that's the case for an Iowa State or a TCU necessarily, or even a Texas Tech. We'll see. I think Tech now, they've like their brand so out there that they'll get the rub. I don't know about a second or third team, though, that might be in contention, but if there is an argument and you're throwing out statistics and it's down to a Big 12 versus SEC conversation, then yeah, show them the head-to-head record this year. And I know the argument will be, well, that wasn't against Miami. That wasn't against Florida State. It wasn't against the best teams. Hell, a couple of them were against one team in North Carolina. But you play who you play, and if you're comparing the conferences, the only way you can compare them is head-to-head. And in head-to-head games, they're 6-1. And the only loss was Georgia Tech beating Colorado there at the beginning of the year. And that was the
last drive of basically last 5 minutes of the game.
That was a game that Colorado should have won based on the turnovers they got, and they couldn't take advantage of it. So that was what prevented a 7-0 start. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, they've handled their business in all of these games. Now, it's not the same as saying, yeah, you beat Miami, you beat FSU, but you beat who was in front of you. And I know if the shoe was on the other foot, the ACC would sure as hell be saying, we're 6-1 against the Big 12. And they sure as hell would expect it to be a part of the playoff conversation.
There's a guy that tweets me anytime the ACC has something, whether ratings or a win against somebody in the Big 12. I just rarely ever.
So you've heard from him one time this year?
I haven't heard from him lately.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't heard from him lately.
I mean, they need to get better. They should have,
but I just
they should have been able to pick off an SEC team or two. Couldn't do that. Big Ten, more mixed results. But against the ACC, yeah, it was very clear. The 6-1 record that they took care of business and handled what they needed to as far as that goes. But yeah, if you want to get to that next echelon, and I understand there's financial reasons as to why that's harder to do than just purely cultural reasons or anything like that. That's going to be a harder hurdle. But the ACC is the one that's kind of on your level. There's, of course, all of the down the road talk about what could be taken from them or what have you. So I think that was a nice statement made by the Big 12 if you were looking for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the Miami, Florida State names, but also the fact who they beat in non-conference. And that's why that Missouri KU game would have been yet another little nugget notch in your belt. But
Arizona State just beating Mississippi State. Like, you should have had that.
Somebody brought that up. Who was it? The Office fan said, hey, Mississippi State, why would they not be ranked in the top 25, at least 25 ahead of BYU? They at least beat Arizona State. And time in the schedule. And that's one of the few times that an SEC maybe didn't get a bump or benefit of the doubt at 25. Now we're picking, like splitting hairs at number 25.
Yeah, that's fair.
Conference. Go ahead.
That's a fair comment. There's quite a few teams I think that you could argue for those last couple spots. I do think TCU and BYU look really good. You'd have an extra spot to put Mississippi State if Illinois would have dropped out. Never mind. I'm going to keep bringing that up all show, but yeah, I think you can kind of get into a muddy discussion because there's not a lot still separating, but a win like that is a quality win. It's just not like a clear top 25 win because Arizona State dropped out of the rankings right after that.
Yep, no question. The American Conference, how about this? They now have 4 Power 4 wins from the Mountain West and 1 each from the Sun Belt and MAC. American now has more Power Conference victories than the ACC and or the Big Ten. 6. And one of them, Memphis, 26-5 their last 31 games. They've won their last 4 games against Power 4 schools after the win against Arkansas this past weekend. Ryan Silverfield has them going. Really nice weekend. And so far, a nice start for the AAC and the American Athletic Conference.
That was a conference that got rated and has been able to really spin it positively as best they can. They took the hand they were dealt, and they're making the best of it rather than crying over it and pointing fingers and playing the victim and doing all of that. They've just said, all right, well, we're going to change, a little bit of the way we're going to, ensure that schools are focusing money, and we're going to, do everything we can to try to make this a competitive and fun league. And we're not going to pretend like we're some cast-offs, and we're going to sit there and prove it when we have the opportunities to prove it that we belong in the same discussion as everybody else. And shoot, they've gone out and done that in the opportunities that they've had this year. So yeah, I think the American has looked really strong. I like the way that all of the kind of additions and subtractions have ultimately worked out for them and to the group of teams that they have now. And they've got some fun teams that I think are going to continue to make noise. You mentioned Memphis is one of those, but USF was like the darling there for the first couple of weeks. And up until that Miami blowout,
Tulane's been
a part of the conversation. Tulsa after Friday night. I know we view Oklahoma State differently than probably most people in the rest of the country, just tuning in like, oh man, what an upset. Tulsa's beating Oklahoma State. Yes, but not as much as you would think actually right now, but still a massive, huge win for Tulsa and a great win for them and for the Americans. So, we could continue to give examples, but North Texas is playing their ass off right now.
Scoring a bunch of points.
So there's a lot of teams that are fun and a lot of teams that'll be competing for that those coveted kind of discussions there at the end of the year of whoever first of all, forget the discussions. It's going to be a fun run to see who the American champion is by the end of the season and how all of that works out. And then on the other side of that, when it comes playoff time and discussions about who makes it and who's on the verge, I think the American will have, potentially whoever emerges from that league, a really strong contender.
North Texas is averaging 47 points a game. They just beat Army and Washington State back-to-back games. They have South Florida, USF, coming up in a couple of weeks. So there we are. With all of that, I think we need to break here. We have Brett McMurphy on 3.com. When we come back, our next open segment around 4:25, the hot seat in college coaching. Some of the names, their seats got hotter. Some maybe a new name or two. And we'll also have some reports and comments from either those coaches and or those who cover their programs. And yes, obviously, Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, he made a comment just a little while ago in his Monday press conference. We'll have that for you too. So we've tried to give you at least a pretty good overview and an umbrella of what was going on and much more to come. Garrett Ross, Brandon Rowe, and Andrew Valade, thank you so much, guys, for what you do. Craig Smoak, Paul's out until tomorrow. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. What does all that mean? 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. All right, what does that mean? Your sex drive's not the same. You don't perform at all, even if you do have sex drive. And you might be sluggish, lethargic. You're having to take maybe a little bit of a power nap when you never used to do that. And sometimes all of that goes with what's going on in your life anyway. But it could also be your testosterone level has dropped. And 1 out of every 3 or 4 men it has. Dr. Petty, contact him and his staff at PettyClinicLowT.com and tell him I sent you. What they will do if you contact them is they will set you up to get your blood work. They'll take care of that. Get the results, and if your testosterone level is lower than it needs to be or quite too low, they'll put you in a program or give you the option to increase your testosterone level. And by the way, you could become, again, the man you want to be, used to be, need to be, thanks to PettyClinicLowT.com.
My go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
It's back 0% for 72 months on all 2025 Ram 1500 trucks during the Drive into Fall event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Check out a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $16,000 off, or a 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $12,000 off, and both at 3.9 for 72 months. And if you drive a Ford, Toyota, or GM, get an extra $1,500 bonus cash. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Summer's heating up, but Bird Coach Ford is freezing the prices.
Right now, get 0% APR for 48 months, 0 down, and no payments for 90 days.
Cool off with us in our freezing showroom and catch a hot deal before summer's over.
Whether it's an F-150, Explorer, or Escape, we've got the perfect deal waiting for you.
Whew. Texas weather can be crazy. Shop anytime inside our showroom or at bkford.com. Experience better at Bird Coach Ford.
As my go-to guy, can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He is thought of as the ultimate when it comes to covering college football. Brett McMurphy with On 3 joins us. I'm David Smoak, Craig Smoak, and this is 365 Sports. Brett, thank you very much, buddy, for being a part of the show. So let's start with the coaches feeling heat. Who today feels more than they felt even last week at this time? Dabo, Gundy, Napier, or who am I missing? I forget another one of the coaches. Among those three, who has more heat today than they even had on Friday?
Guess it depends on your definition of heat. I don't think Dabo's, of the three, I'd say Dabo has the least amount of heat, if you will. You could probably put Luke Fickell in that group.
Yep.
But the thing, David, that I don't know, and this obviously we saw what Virginia Tech and UCLA did is, once you make that move, obviously the news today, Bruce Pearl stepping down in basketball, that opens up the portal, for the next 30 days. So if you want to make a move, is it really worth it to make it now? Or is it almost better to kind of do it more towards the back half of the season so you don't have a potential total mass exodus, if you will? But, things got bad enough that for Virginia Tech and UCLA, they had to go ahead and make that move. So we'll see what happens. I'm not saying nothing's going to happen in the near future, but maybe some of these places where we think, oh, this guy's definitely out, maybe they get a longer leash, if you will, till we get towards the end of the season.
Brett, how much of a statement do you feel like Texas Tech was able to make on Saturday? Clearly, people were very well aware of their offseason, so it didn't come as some huge surprise that they were talented, but I think people widely watched them a lot more this past weekend than maybe they had seen. So how do you feel like people are walking away thinking about the Red Raiders and kind of their place among the general discussion right now in college football?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was very high on Utah. But man, Texas Tech, they really just totally shut down Utah on offense. And if not for a lot of turnovers, that thing, could have really got out of hand. I know they pulled away at the end, but I've been very impressed with what Tech's done. Joey McGuire's been very, very open and transparent about all of this, and he's, basically realizes the pressure he's under when you spend that amount of money to bring in that amount of talent to basically have a lot of success with that. And certainly, first game out of the gate, they certainly look like a favorite in the Big 12. And, certainly, I think they can be a college. Obviously, they're going to, if they win the Big 12, they're in the playoffs. But I think they could do some damage in the playoffs as well.
Brett, with the Big 12's record against the ACC, which was 6-1, including TCU's win against SMU, will that matter down the stretch when they go to pick the field? Or as long as Miami and Florida State are in the mix, it won't matter really? The ACC is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. Really, right now the ACC looks to be in better position. They've got, Miami and Florida State looking really good. You look at the rest of the schedule, and Georgia Tech is going to be favored in all of their ACC games. Now they do have in the regular season against Georgia, but if Georgia Tech runs a table, even loses to Georgia and wins the ACC, and then you could have potentially, a one-loss Miami or one-loss Florida State team, for an at-large bid. So, I think the Big 12 is deeper than the ACC, but it really doesn't matter how deep these conferences are. It matters how good your elite teams are. And I think right now, Florida State and Miami, at least right now, again, Florida State looked really, really good against Alabama. They really haven't played anybody since then. So, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now. But I think the ACC is in really good position, no matter what the rest of the league looks like.
Brett, I just kind of blindly was looking at that Indiana-Illinois game last week. It's just not as much in my wheelhouse, like talking about teams in the South or teams in the Big 12 and what have you. But damn, man, I know you picked games, but did you see, even if you picked Indiana, that type of a game coming this past weekend?
Yeah, it was surprising they were that dominant. I did notice that basically, that lined open at Indiana, I think, was around 3 or 4, and by the time kickoff, they were up almost like a touchdown favorite. There's certainly a lot of people liked Indiana, but yeah, by no means I think did anyone expect anything that bad. And of course, love him or hate him, but he's never boring. Kurt Signetti today talking about they play at Iowa Saturday and the challenge of playing at Iowa, and he said, we're gonna have to play well. It'll be a challenge, a more difficult challenge than last week, that's for sure. So he's even piling on even after the game. But you look, and I've been very critical of Indiana's non-conference schedule because they have played, basically 3 corpses. But, they have won. They do win their games and they do run it up. Now they still, we'll see how they do the rest of the season. They still have to play Ohio State. You look at if they win the games they're supposed to, if they lose the games they're supposed to, you're looking at another 10-2 season. But, 10-2 may get them in the playoff again. And, they have to go at Oregon. They have Iowa this week, and then they go at Penn State, not Ohio State. So those are 2 games they're probably going to lose, but the rest of the games they probably should win. And, 10-2, even with an easy schedule, I think it's going to be hard to keep them out.
You know what's so amazing about it? They make the playoff. Last year's team was good. They beat Michigan. Obviously, Ohio State beat them. And then it's like 27-17 against Notre Dame in the first ever playoff game with 12 teams was 63-0. Now, Notre Dame was better, but it was almost as if that game, there were people who were questioning the playoff even then, and they played 4 quarters of a game. I have never missed a game of what I predicted just by picking a winner or loser than I did with what Indiana did to Illinois in my lifetime. That was incredible.
But I also think I know a lot of people, and I thought this, and I forgot what I had it. Illinois ranked last week. I did not have them in my top 25 this week, but I did not have them in my top 25. I had them probably like in my top 10, like a lot of people. I had them down around 15 or so, and I think a lot of it was everybody was buying in on what Illinois did last year. And, they had a great season. But, again, you look a little bit, inside the box score. They won a lot of close games. And those usually don't translate the following year. And also, they were outgained in a lot of those wins. So, basically, the simplest way to put it is, they had very fortunate, or you could call it lucky. So, they actually had a much better – they were 10-3. More often than not, you have those kind of results on the field and you don't win 10 games. They did win 10 games. So usually the next year that usually comes back and bites you. Well, they go at Duke. They blow out Duke 45-19, but Duke outgained them. Duke had 5 turnovers. That's not going to happen every game. Well, it didn't happen against Indiana. Now, I don't think Illinois is that bad, but I do think, we're looking at maybe a 7-8 win team compared to like a double-digit top 10 win team that I think a lot of people thought Illinois would be.
It's the correction of college football with now SEC going to 9 games. They released the common opponents today. We haven't looked at that or the list on the show, but a lot of them are self-explanatory. And I just saw what you had just a couple minutes ago with the ACC will now move to 9 games and add a 10th Power 4 school to their schedule with Jim Phillips. Now everybody pretty much, I'm not saying it's the same playing field, but everybody playing the same amount of conference games.
Yeah, well, here's the funny part. So I know you weren't at Big Ten Media Days. I was there, and, the common theme of all the Big Ten coaches, and they were specifically calling out the SEC was, well, they only play 8. They only play 8. We play 9. We play 9. That's why we need, automatic bids in the playoff and all this other minutia. Mm-hmm. Well, a funny thing happened in the past few months. The SEC announces they're going to 9 games, plus they're going to play a 10th game against a non-conference Power 4 opponent. The ACC announced, literally 15 minutes ago, they're also going from 8 to 9, plus they will require their teams to play a 10th non-conference Power 4 team out of conference. The Big 12's already been doing that. They play 9. They're required to play a 10th Power Conference team out of conference. Well, guess who doesn't require a 10th team out of conference? Yep, that's right. The mighty Big 10. They do not have that requirement. They play 9 league games. The other 3 games are up to whoever they want to play against. That's why we see, Penn State and Indiana playing Bishop Sycamore, Villanova, School of the Blind and Deaf, whoever else is available for their 3 non-conference games. Hopefully the Big Ten will change that. I think they will, just because of the peer pressure of being the only Power Conference school that doesn't require an additional non-conference Power 4 team. But also bigger picture is what's this going to do for the Group 5 teams? And specifically, what's it going to do for the Group 5 teams trying to get home and homes potentially with our conference teams? I don't think they're going to be able to do it, because I think every Power Conference team, for the most part, they've got those 10 Power Conference teams, including the non-conference, and then their other 2 games they're going to want to have 2 home games. Fine, schedule an FCS, schedule Bishop Sycamore High School, whoever you want. but I don't think they're going to go on the road. So it's going to be even more another challenge for the non-power conference teams as far as future schedules. Trying to get quality teams to come into your stadium is not going to be very easy, and that's another consequence of conference expansion and the Power Four, and ultimately those conferences do what's best for them, but unfortunately it impacts everybody, and I think we'll see a lot of that in the coming years.
Did you ever have a chance to meet Sean Clark or interview him when he was the head coach at Appalachian State or any time during your career?
No, unfortunately I did not. I traded some text messages with him before, but I never got to meet him in person. But from everyone I talked to, just unbelievable man, and it's my gosh, he was only 50 years old, and such a sad story. And obviously prayers out to him and his family, and it kind of puts things in perspective when something like this hits, and just so sad.
We're going to have Mark Daniels, the voice of UCF, on here in about 30 minutes. One more note, and Brett, we always appreciate your time. Brett McMurphy on 3 with us. USF had the great Cinderella start. Obviously, that was the flat tire against Miami, but still they're for real. The G5 this year is loaded with what Memphis has done. Tulane, I know, just lost. It was always like Boise State and maybe somebody else. USF is, I saw the AD, Rob Higgins' quote, "We've got to make sure we're absolutely the best members of the American, etc." I love the way the American has just gone about their business, and some of those programs seem to be getting better and not whining. They're just playing football.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I don't want to be one of these hot takes like, oh, here's your Heisman Trophy winner in September, and here's your Group 5, college football playoff rep. But I don't see any way that it's not the champion from the American. Like, I don't care who wins it. I mean, Memphis has a win over Arkansas. USF has the wins over Boise and over Florida. Tulane's got 2 wins over power conference teams. I just don't see a team outside the American that can get to the playoff, and they're in great shape. Whoever wins it, Navy's undefeated right now. They may even win the thing, but I think USF's win over Boise, whether it's fair or not, I think it basically just eliminated the Mountain West, and I don't see anybody in any of the other leagues. So that's the great news for the American is they can have a rep in the college football playoff.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time, Brett. I know you got a lot to do this week. Good luck doing whatever you do, and there's a lot of information on college athletics. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, David.
Hey,
Appreciate
you too.
it.
Brett McMurphy on 3. One of the things, the way Brett on his Twitter feed, and if you on this show when we've had him, is he reports a bunch right there with the great writers in college football. But he also has an incredible sense of humor at times that he'll throw into the mix too. But appreciate him being a part of the show today. When we come back, coaches and the hot seat. We discussed that with him. What does that mean? Mark Daniels on the loss of Sean Clark at UCF, Phil Bennett. And then, of course, we'll also look at the Big 12 in depth a little bit later on in today's show. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club coming off a home game with Arizona State. They had their big tailgate at Knox Hall. No game this week as Baylor is on the road against Oklahoma State. However, they did put this out earlier today. If you're an ex-Life member with the Baylor Club, they said they're excited to announce partnering with Lake Waco Golf Club. Now your membership goes even further. But what you can do with the Baylor Club and being a part of their membership, it's countrywide and nationwide, is you can play some very nice golf courses around not just the area, but also around the country that perhaps you would otherwise not have that opportunity. And then, of course, the Baylor Club, where they can host for you events, whether it's a wedding, luncheon, shower, banquet, a symposium, a business meeting, all of that. And they also have some kiosks that are that where 1 or 2, 3 people can sit in. Let's say someone wants to talk to you about your life or health insurance, something like that. They have room for that with specific kiosks available for you to have some privacy. The food is fantastic. The amenities have been spiced up by Nick Colwell, the general manager. And of course, they can not just host events, but host you for breakfast or brunch or dinner. And they have tasting events occasionally where top chefs will tell you, okay, how about this that we add to a buffet or the menu? The Baylor Club, memberships available. Tell them 365 Sports sent you.
Big savings are waiting at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive off in a 2025 Jeep Wrangler Sport for just $29,990, or grab a new Jeep Compass Latitude for only $26,700. The road and trails are calling. And wrap up your summer in style with the Make This the Summer event at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I'm not sure if we'll get to Syracuse. We will get to perhaps Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, but Andrew just put up the newest poll about injuries. Faking injuries. You saw that in the Syracuse game, or at least the ACC said they did with Syracuse. Great win for Fran Brown. However, here are some big names right now, whether, like Brett McMurphy said, some seats hotter than others. Oklahoma State losing to Tulsa in that game in Stillwater. Another just like rock bottom moment, maybe. I don't know. But here's Brian Keating, his quote or his thoughts, who covers Oklahoma State. I don't know how many more games Mike Gundy will coach at Oklahoma State, probably the remaining 9 this season. But at least now we all know this is it. It's been a heck of a run for Mike. He's a legend at OSU, but it's over for him, and everyone knows it. Now, Max Olson put this out after they lost to Tulsa, where Oklahoma State is. They have now lost 12 of their last 17 games since going to the Big 12 championship game against Texas in 2023. Man, when I saw that score pop up, I'm like, all respect for Tulsa, but I was like, man, this is about to get worse.
I was driving to my hometown on Friday nights and got to catch most of the broadcast of the game on, I guess it was Sirius. I think it was listening on Sirius. And I always have that this time of year because they get all the play-by-play games. So I know I'm going to be traveling a lot, and I want to be able to listen when I'm away from a TV. And so this came in handy on Friday night in particular with the ability to listen. And I was listening and thinking I was going to be able to hear Oklahoma State kind of enjoying their nights maybe, or at least enjoying a win, and felt like, I know Tulsa's a team that has some talent, but certainly Oklahoma State can win this game. And it didn't take long for me to pop that on, and they were already down, and then they were down by more, and then it started getting worse. And by the time I actually got home from about a 2.5-hour drive, I mean, the writing was on the wall that they were donezo. And watched the rest of the game at my house, and it was just a moment where it felt like it couldn't really get any lower for Oklahoma State in the Mike Gundy era. And listening to the broadcast before I got home and just watched the rest of it, and again, the writing was kind of on the wall at that point, but I was listening to that broadcast. It was the home broadcast. So it's Robert Allen down on the sidelines, and listening to their play-by-play, and there's just these long gaps of silence where they don't quite know what to say because Tulsa's ripped off another first down and another first down and another punt forced and another Oklahoma State mistake and another bad throw from Floor. And it was just crazy to just listen to it in real time and hear it from like the folks right there on the scene who've covered this team for years, and to just hear the desperation in their voices for answers, and to get the sense from just hearing their silences, or when they did have some conversation of just like how bad it had gotten and how bad it was. And I think when I finally was able to like really lay eyes on it, I was incredibly taken aback by how much better Tulsa looked physically, how much more athletic Tulsa looked. Like, no wonder they're winning this game. They look like the better team. Mm-hmm. They look like you swapped uniforms before the game started. So, that all just was like rolling through my head on Friday night. And then I listened to one of the post-game podcasts, and you have a bunch of alumni who are just out of their minds. And yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's rock bottom for Mike Gundy. And the thing about it is there's no really out on the rest of the schedule. I mean, I know they come to Waco now, and Baylor's not some great team by any, or they're I guess in Stillwater actually. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they get Baylor to come into town, and I know Baylor's not some great team. But that would be the kind of game if Dave Aranda lost that, you fire Dave Aranda. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's the kind of place where Oklahoma State is right now. That would be unacceptable for Dave Aranda to roll in there and lose this game
especially after what we saw this past weekend, which is another story. Yeah.
You have the 66-point loss to Oregon on the road, and now a 7-point loss at home to Tulsa, where I don't really feel like that score was indicative of the way that game felt. It felt like Tulsa was in full control the entire time. And the fact that Oklahoma State had a chance still to try and maybe steal a win away or something almost was cruel, in that you wish they would have gotten blown out and just not had this moment. Get your hopes up. Oh, no, it's just exactly what we thought it was 15 minutes ago. It was almost cruel that it got for a second like it could, maybe they could show a sign of life. Oh, no, it's exactly what you thought. I don't know what you do. I mean, there's nobody left on the schedule that's a guaranteed win by any stretch of the imagination. And really, before the season started, you had one guaranteed win. That was your first game. I don't know if you felt like Tulsa was, but that would have been your second choice. And they just rolled in and beat you. So Yeah, man, I don't know where it goes from here.
I was watching Gamecast because I had a high school game, and I was like, man, I forgot somebody in our booth said something about Tulsa winning. They had a drive. The game was 19-12, 5 plays, 28 yards. They were down to the, let's see, where was it? They were inside like the Tulsa 10 for what seemed like 5 or 8 plays and I think they came away with a field goal. They just couldn't. That was not when it was 19-12. It was earlier in the game. They just had nothing. They had nothing. Now, here's a note from today. Eli Letterman, who we've had on the show before, said a question today to Mike Gundy from Joe Masato during the weekly presser. Is it fair to say that you have no interest in this season being your last? Of course, at Oklahoma State, Gundy, 100%. That's a good question. I like that question. So that's Gundy when asked about whether or not he sees, doesn't mean he doesn't realize what's going on, but he does want to keep coaching there at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, it's his alma mater. He played there. He's built the program and is the greatest coach in the school's history. Of course, he doesn't want to leave, and especially doesn't want to leave like this. But I don't think he has much choice in the matter at this point. And what choice you had as a coach was to not lose to Tulsa at home on a Friday night. And I think the sequence you're talking about, I mean,
well, we don't have to get that.
Yeah,
but it was pathetic.
They had back-to-back series where they turned the ball over on downs, but the second time after they had recovered a fumble from Tulsa when it was 19-3, they got down to the 13 5-yard run, 3-yard pass, negative 1-yard run on 4th and 2 at the 5, and turned the ball over inside the 5.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you're talking about. But it was just it's an ugly loss. It's an ugly time period for that football program. It's crazy to think they've been in a couple of Big 12 title games here recently, and it's gone this far south this quickly, and there's no magic decision that can be made, like a quarterback switch or anything along those lines to really improve it all that much this season. So it sure does feel like the writing's on the wall. You'd love for Gundy to scrap it up and like make a fight of it, but I just don't know that that's in the cards for them this year. So in listening to a lot of analysts from Stillwater, they sure as hell feel and sound like they want him out of there and that it's just time for a change. Of course, he's going to think differently. It'll ultimately matter what the power people have to say on it, but it does feel like we're watching the end of the road for Mike Gundy.
Here's a super chat. I agree, Craig. It just seems like it's just a matter of time. Who knows? From Dustin Archambault, time for Gundy to involuntarily ride off into the sunset. I don't see how we recover under his tenure. The AD is working with no contract as well. Total reset. Remember, they had a president change. Total reset needed. Baby Weston is doing well. Thank you. Of course, Dustin and his lovely wife had a child last week, and S. Michael DeHart's the one that mentioned that. We mentioned that on the show. So, Dustin, thank you very much, Oklahoma State fan, for the super chat of $10.
Yeah, man, really appreciate it. Congratulations on the huge life milestone and moment for your family and yourself. That's awesome, and so appreciate you giving us a little bit of love and sending them a lot of love your way as well, Dustin. So thank you. And yeah, he can't have a say in the matter because he's not going to want to go anywhere. And I don't think there's any plan you can come up with. Well, we're going to get our NIL in order and we're going to hire new coordinators. Well, wait, I thought you've already done these things. You just hired new coordinators again. Like that's what I said. There's no magic solution of like, oh, well, we'll just go get this OC and then he'll turn our offense into the days of old of when we were one of the most exciting, prolific units in the entire country, sending guys regularly to the NFL and winning major awards and doing all those things. Like they're so far from that.
Yeah.
And they've turned over coaches and like this offseason just flipped the staff overall. And you've just been there, done that. And there's no, like, again, there's no real solution that's feasible where some magical T. Boone Pickens guy runs into town and says, here's $100 million, like go buy a roster. Like that's not going to happen either. So yeah, it's to his point and to all the Oklahoma State fans who I've listened to and talked to here of late, it just feels like, yeah, there's no signs for optimism and they're going to have to make a move. It's not a move they'd ever want to make, but sometimes you have to do the hardest thing, and that's to send away a guy who's done so much for you.
Barry Crawford's an Oklahoma State fan. OSU has 12 new coaches, 68 new players.
Yeah.
And all. Okay, now We appreciate the super chat, Dustin. Thank you much. And as Craig said, congratulations on the newborn. Now,
what's Barry's point, though? Like, I mean, as far as, is he saying that should be like
he didn't really I don't think he's making a point. He just wanted to make sure, this is part of the deal. But the problem is that's like 2 years. It was just less than 4 years ago. They're an inch away from winning the Big 12 title, then playing for it 2 years later, got smoked by UT. But this has been this has been a car wreck.
Yeah, I just want to know where Barry is coming from with that. But that's absolutely valid. I mean, completely flip the staff, completely flip the roster, but the roster looks worse than ever.
Yeah, well, he goes. Barry said, I expected improvement giving that, and it hasn't manifested.
No, it hasn't. You're absolutely right, Barry. I mean, if like they had flipped all these things and you at least go, you know what? If we just get a quarterback in here, this offense has got – no, you're not saying that.
No.
Like if we just get like the right D lineman, this defense, no, you're not saying that. You're not happy about anything that's going on. None of it looks all that great, and you can't go and flip it again this offseason because now you've already been there and you've done that. And so, yeah, if there was like signs of optimism to hold on to, that'd be one thing. But Zane Flores isn't the future at quarterback, right? We're not going to see Hoss Haney probably the rest of this year. If I was him, I'm sitting back and resting and getting as healthy as I can. So, yeah, it's a bad deal, and you'd hope that all those moves had led to just a little something to hold on to, but that's not even there at the moment for them. So that's really what makes it feel so dire, I think.
Brandon, I just sent you a text. I'm not sure we can do this on the air. Can you take and put up the Arkansas buyout tweet? We will get, as I mentioned, to some of the Big 12, and I'm going to push up the Arizona State win against Baylor, and some of that information, we're going to push that into that just after the time we have Phil Bennett. So what?
Mark Daniels?
Yeah, he's next. He's next. He's coming up in about 5 minutes. He's on at 4:40. Here is Pittman and Arkansas losing to Memphis. And, of course, his seat was already hot. I like Sam Pittman a great deal. I hope that he can somehow manage his way through this. But here it is. We've already used that one. It's the one from Michael Maine on the coaching hot seat. All right, see if we got it. So Brandon Marcello had this. Buyout money doesn't matter at this point. If they feel like it's going to be the best situation, they will make a move in the middle of the season. Bobby Petrino has been working the phones. He's positioning himself to be the next man in line. Of course, he's been at Arkansas before. We know that story. So Sam Pittman's on the hot seat, no question. Memphis is good. They're probably better than Arkansas, but that's not going to be something Arkansas fans want to hear. But they lose to Memphis, and now Sam Pittman, the Heat, just gets higher on his seat too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what was bound to happen when you lose to a team like Memphis, even though you had the ball and a chance to go win that game there at the end and you fumble it away. So just kind of adds to the I guess the feeling of, they're so close, but they're still far away, and it doesn't matter how close they are. If we keep doing this, we're just sort of spinning our wheels type of a thing. So had they gone and won that game, then I don't think that means that he's going to be signing a brand new contract or anything like that. But losing that game, that definitely is another nail in the coffin for folks who just feel like this is all too common and they're just kind of in the wrong space with the wrong coach at this time. So, that was a brutal loss.
It was, and I wasn't surprised when I saw that Memphis had won it. Arkansas' sixth loss when scoring 30-plus points since 2023, the most in the FBS over that particular time period. Thank you to Brandon Marcello with that. All right, when we come back, Mark Daniels, voice of UCF football and athletics, on the passing of offensive line coach Sean Clark. 3-0 start for Scott Frost after the win against Bill Belichick and North Carolina. And, what do you know? The old UCF compared to calling them Central Florida, what we experienced 5 years ago, popped up over the weekend, too. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler. Hold on just a second. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Ted T, the general manager and CEO, and David Gray handles the sales department, and they do a great job with that. Through the month of September, at Alan Samuels in Waco, get 0% APR for 72 months on the 2025 Ram 1500, one of the most, I guess, most popular and highest rated trucks you could find anywhere in the country. 0% APR for 72 months, 6 years on a truck that is built at all, 0% interest for 72 months. Also, the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee L, 0% APR financing for 72 months, 3 rows, 0 interest for 6 years. And the 2026 Ram 1500, that's available for this 0% APR. This not for 72 months, but 60 months plus a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. They have SUVs. They have trucks. They have a phenomenal, I guess you could say, display of pre-owned cars, which is what I did 5 years ago when I was looking to replace my Tahoe that finally had run out of gas at 470,000 miles on it. It's Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340, and east of 84 in Waco.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
365 Sports, Phil Bennett around the corner. And Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. Obviously a great start for UCF in football. But then, Mark, today's news about Sean Clark, how besides the obvious did that shake up the community?
Well, just a sad news, guys. I think some people learned on September the 9th, Coach Clark had a medical emergency, and it's been in the hospital since. And the family obviously wanted to keep things private, but UCF knew that they were dealing with a very serious situation. And then just learning this morning about the news that Coach Clark passing last night, just very sad. And I think, his brief time in Orlando, you just heard players and other coaches talk about just what Coach Clark meant to them. And then just seeing the response across college football today of those that coach with him, against him, knew about him. Very, very sad news for UCF. Comes at a tough time emotionally for everybody, and just a sad day around UCF. Coach Clark in a short time came here after leaving App State, joined Coach Frost, and really was a very important hire. As Scott was looking to put his staff together and working with the athletic director, Terry Mohajir, wanted to identify some names that Scott hadn't worked with and those that had experience. And as a former head coach, he was a really important person on that staff. I know Scott has thought very highly of Coach Clark, and I know this has hit him hard even before the news last night, and just very, very sad throughout the UCF family today.
He was, of course, for quite some time at Appalachian State, and of course had a great success there, and then had the win at A&M. There's that emotional interview that I saw that was put up a few places today. He took a head coaching, he took an offensive line job to be with Coach Frost at UCF. He was the head coach of what is a really good football program. That says quite a bit about what he believed in Frost as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it did. And UCF was very excited that he was interested in coming to UCF. And like I said, his past experience as a head coach was important. And look, I think when he came here, there was this understanding, Scott, this is someone that you can lean on that understands what it is to be a head coach. Scott wanted to bring in a mix of guys that he had worked with, as well as some voices that were new to him. And I know Scott had great respect. The offensive line guys, in a short time in this portal world, you got to come together. And he had done a really good job on taking some new faces with a few returning players and kind of building this unit through the spring, into the summer, start of August camp, and then the start of the season before, the news that he was hospitalized. So it's, it's hit the UCF team hard. They had a bye week. They lost one of the days of practice during that bye week, and tried to have a normal week to prepare for the game this past week. And as you can imagine, it's going to be a tough week for UCF as they get set for conference opening game.
So, Mark, with that said, and dealing with the emotions of it all, man, what a start, 3-0, and now kind of a marquee win as far as a name goes with beating North Carolina there, and doing so in very impressive, very one-sided fashion. I guess what's stood out to you about this 3-0 start thus far? Because there were certainly a lot of questions about just how all this was going to work, but what have you made of what you've seen?
Saturday's game was interesting. Two teams very similar. One, UNC, 70 new players. UCF, 63 new players. First year coach, even though Scott comes back, but first year, back here. And they had 3 games. UCF, 2 games. What did you see? And, UCF was fairly dominant in the football game. I think, both sides of the ball, they were more athletic. I think UCF has more speed, had the much better quarterback play, made fewer mistakes. So in that game, I think if you're a UCF fan, you feel like the team has gotten better. Look, they got, a few breaks in the first game to survive against Jacksonville State, easily won their second game against North Carolina A&T. But in this football game, opening drive down the field, scored, had some momentum, then a big play towards the end of the half, a big series down, up 13-3. A couple of North Carolina penalties, extends the drive. UCF gets a touchdown. Then they get a stop to start the third quarter and score, really put the game away. They've gotten better all 3 games, which I think is what you want to do. Scott Frost said after the game, it's far from a finished product, but quarterback play's gotten better. Offensive line play's gotten better. Defensively, Alex Grinch has to be happy. So they're improving, but as Scott said, they're where they thought they would be. Now you got to step up to play a conference schedule. And they know they're getting a really good Kansas State team. I think we all agree, probably much better than their record. They come off a bye week, always hard to go to Manhattan. So UCF knows first road game, tough environment whenever the game is there, much different level of competition. But I thought this past weekend you saw where UCF has gotten better, I think, in all phases of the game.
Taven Jackson's been around. He's a typical story in college football, Tennessee, obviously, and then Indiana, and now UCF. He seems to be running that ship. When was that a given that he was going to be the guy? And were there any type of we're not completely sure? I would think that everyone is for sure now, right?
Remember, he didn't start the opening game. Cam Fancher played at Marshall and FAU started, and I think UCF felt like it was a real battle through the summer. Ja'Cory Brown's a kid from Miami that was on UCF's roster last year. And guys, they battled in August, and I saw a lot of August, and there wasn't a situation that Taven stood out. And when UCF made the decision, I think they felt like Cam Fancher had been the most consistent guy. Well, Cam gets hurt in that first game. Taven came in, did some good things. Cam didn't play in game 2 because of the injury that he suffered. Taven did some good things, kind of a really lopsided game. And Taven, got to go here in this football game, and he's gotten better. Look, he's got the size, he's got the arm, and then he showed a run ability, this past week, and I think surprised some people. So the talent's there, being consistent, I think, now is the next step for him. But I think what Scott has done really well, and he did this at UCF before at McKenzie Milton, and now with Taven Jackson, he calls plays to give his quarterback a chance to succeed. They didn't risk a lot this past week, partly because of the zone coverage that Carolina played, so not a lot of deep balls downfield. But Taven made some plays. And I think what's also happened for UCF in these first 3 games, players that they're hoping become playmakers have some opportunities, build some confidence heading into conference play. So I think they've gotten that. Use of the tight end, wide receivers, they don't have a lot of P4 experience, an offensive line that they're still trying to learn. So I think some of that has led to Taven feeling more comfortable and Scott feeling more comfortable as he called plays.
How do you feel like the running game has developed? Love the Jaden Nixon pickup, Miles Montgomery coming back, obviously, and you also have some dual threat there with your quarterbacks. But how have you kind of seen that through these first 3 games, and what is still kind of to be figured out, or do you want to see?
Yeah, I think Carolina defended the run really well. In fact, I think Carolina's got issues. I think their defense is going to get better as the year goes along. It'll keep them in a few games. How many they win, I don't know. And UCF didn't run the ball that well with their running backs in this game. Taven Jackson was the most effective runner. I think Scott feels like they got to get better at that. I think the offensive line probably, feels like they've got more steps to make when it comes to the running game. Scott's system requires a successful running game. That's what was a big key for UCF in 16 and 17. So I think they feel like they've got to be better. You've got to be able to run the ball. Obviously, in the Big 12, you can't just rely on dropping back and throwing the ball. They've got talent there. They do. I think they've got 3 good backs. Stacey Gage is a redshirt freshman that's got some potential. Tavian Swint, a really good back. Swint got hurt, is unavailable right now. So there's depth there, but that line has to continue to grow, and I think they need some more consistency out of that ground game because, again, Carolina did a pretty good job kind of stuffing the run on Saturday.
What is it? Obviously, the 3-0 start's great, and as you mentioned, the game this week. But how do you, as someone that covered UCF when Malzahn was there, and it seemed like things were okay, but he's gone, and what he's doing at Florida State, and then we watched Lee Hunter in Texas Tech and what he did in that game and their win against Utah. How much do you keep up with those who have left and what they're doing?
Well, I mean, it's that for all of us when you develop relationships to a degree. I saw Lee Hunter at Media Days, guys, and you were there, came up, he gave me a big hug. And as Lee said, Mark, I love my time in Orlando. I love UCF. The opportunity at Texas Tech is one that he couldn't pass up. And I think people understand that. More power to Lee. He's a great guy, great family. I wish him nothing but the best. I'm not surprised that he's playing well. He's going to play on Sundays. I watched Tommy Castellanos at Florida State from his time at UCF. And obviously Gus is doing some things there that, it's kind of what Gus's offense is built around. And, a lot of guys, heck, Parker Navarro's at Ohio in the MAC, and he's a former UCF quarterback, and I watch those guys. So, I mean, now you just got a lot of people in different places, and you root for them, and, you wish them well, just like there's guys that played elsewhere that now are here at UCF, guys that we played against, in years past. UCF had a defensive lineman, Rodney Lore. He played at North Carolina last year. And played them on Saturday. So it's part of college football. It's impossible to prepare for a game and not go, I know that guy, or that guy. It's just where we are in 2025.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the game with Kansas State coming up. What is the schedule? You mentioned this week with Sean Clark and all of that. How does all that mesh?
Yeah, I think UCF is working through that. Today was obviously a tough day when the news broke that Coach Clark had passed last night, and you try to keep things somewhat on schedule. It's going to be a little bit challenging. This has hit a lot of people, within the UCF football family and the UCF community. You try to keep it on schedule to prepare for a game, and that's up to Scott and the staff and the support staff to work on that. And, we'll see how they handle that. I think it's one thing to, say be inspired and play for Coach Clark. It's something else to assume that it's not going to impact them. But I'm going to guess Scott has told his football team that there's a time to mourn and a time to always remember Coach Clark. And at the same time, we're going to try to focus when we can on this football game to prepare. It's a challenging football game. Even without this situation at UCF, I think they know they're going to get a really good and desperate Kansas State team, desperate in the sense of they know what's at stake for them, makes them very dangerous coming off a bye week. So it's a big week, challenging week for UCF. They can get better, got to get a lot better for what lies ahead. I think they feel good football-wise about what they've accomplished, but they know that now you're stepping up in class for the next 9 games, and certainly a tough one this week.
You may not remember this. You probably do. But back when what was it, 2021 or whenever all the rumblings started? Yeah, that was the fall of 21.
Yeah.
When Texas OU story popped that they're going to the SEC at some point. And then who's coming into the Big 12? And BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and then UCF. And I made, God help me, I said the University of Central Florida. I said it back then. That's the name of the school. But I remember the Twitter posse of UCF fans went all into my business. They take that very seriously. I saw where Scott mentioned it. But if there was anybody that wouldn't know what UCF or the real name of UCF, it would be Bill Belichick. But they took that personally and added a little edge to themselves, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't know if Bill knew what he was doing when he said it. He may have just had a moment and he just said Central, and then, that's all it needs for the UCF Twitter mafia to kind of get going and to let it roll. Scott made a comment afterwards, about that and said, hey, we're UCF, and talked about a chip on the shoulder. And it is a little bit of a theme. UCF, by most account, was picked last in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
There's still many people in national media that won't call us UCF. They call us Central Florida. A couple people said, I don't know what the big deal is. And, that's fine. And UCF fans are passionate about that. They feel that over the years they maybe earned the right to be called UCF. And if there's moments that you use to motivate players, it's fine. And fans are going to be fans. And I guess that's part of college football as long as it's somewhat civil. But it is a sensitive spot at UCF. And they asked to be called a UCF. And when those that don't do it, they'll let you know about it. But they like you. Believe me, they like you.
No, we're good. I was like, golly, it's like fire ants when I go back to the days of remembering what they did with Dante Culpepper and many others as well. Greg, anything else for Mark? Hey, man, thank you very much. I know it's been a tough day. Thanks for giving us an update on the day. Obviously not good with the Sean Clark passing, but what a nice start at 3-0, and hopefully they handle the week. And good luck. And I know traveling to Manhattan this weekend against a team that needs a win. They've had some time off, and, man, they've been hurting in a different way because of what's happened to them early. Thanks for your time, Mark.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I think the Central Florida thing, it's kind of like they don't want to be called the Golden Knights either.
Mm-hmm.
But my name's Craig. If you start calling me C and I say, no, I want to be called Craig, and you just keep calling me C, I'll be like, no, I want to be called Craig. Like, respect me enough to call me what I want to be called.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing about it is, well, why are you being so stupid about it? It's what I prefer.
No.
So can you just not show me the respect to just call me what I've asked you to call me? And I know it's everything's social media, goof on everything. Everything's completely unserious and whatever. And this is definitely not a super serious topic by any means, but let's just Brigham Young. Brigham Young this, Brigham Young that, Brigham Young this, it's University of Southern California. It's California, Los Angeles, South Florida. That they don't get up in arms about that at USF, but we mostly know about USF. But yeah, I just think it's a respect thing of like, hey, I'm asking you to call me this and not the other thing. So can you do that for me? And also, I think it's the football coach who sees an opportunity to have a chip on his shoulder over something, and that never hurts either because they're constantly looking for that kind of disrespect card to be played. So, yeah, it is kind of funny when you see it initially, but then I've got to the point now where I saw so many people pushing back. Why are you being so weird? Why are you being so serious? Because they've asked you to call them a name and you refuse to, and they don't like that you're disrespecting them, ultimately, is what it comes down to, because you're not obeying their requests. So I kind of see where they're coming from after a while.
When I remember doing that, I remember immediately, because it was a part we put the segment up, and then I realized it. And what's amazing, though, they will keep coming at you, even if you kind of and I didn't quite understand it at first. I got it, and I'm glad people let me know how they feel. But you're right. USC, Sometimes I've been told they don't like to go by Southern Cal, which I've always referred to them. So I try to do USC. I know the Brigham Young University thing because of, again, some of it's how old you are, what you remember. It's BYU, and it took me a while to kind of get away from saying that. And eventually, if I do, it slip. But I do now say it the way that they would like for you to say it. So there we are with that. Next segment, Phil Bennett. His thoughts about some of the games in the Big 12, some of the other bangers also outside of the conference. A couple of things about when Baylor was playing Arizona State and seemed like they had a little momentum, and then Sam Leavitt, dagger. Why is this the case? Sawyer Robertson is not running. And so
it's Avery Johnson in Waco, basically.
That's one of the strengths of Sawyer Robertson. A year ago, even though he didn't run much the last 5 or 6 games because he did have an ankle injury, he had 230 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. He was a threat to take off. He's a big body. He has 13 carries for 12 yards. Now, there's 2 or 3 ways to look at this. Has he been told not to run? Is that his decision? Well, you know what you do? You ask him. So in the post game, Zach Smith from the Waco Trib asked him about the lack of him running, and he kind of said it was based on the situation. Then I followed up a little bit later, and I sat there. I was like, no. I said, so has anyone told you not to run? I needed to ask that question, not to put pressure on Jake Spavital or anybody else, but just to why are you not running? And he said it's more of an instinctive feel that he has, and they need him to run. Now, if he can't, he can't. Some people think it's still that he's not 100%. That's fine, but he's not running. He is a weapon for them as a passer, but also can be a huge weapon for them by taking off 2 to 4 times a game, and he's just not doing it. He's not doing it. And we'll have Phil kind of discuss that with us in the next segment too.
Yeah, I mean, let's not act like he's some Michael Vick level dual
not
threat,
Lamar
but
Jackson
he can run a little bit when he needs to, and he can pick up some yardage when he needs to. And I mean, he has avoided it for the most part, and I think at this point he'll be more on track to have finished like he did in 2023 when he had 35 carries for 70 yards rushing and a touchdown, whereas last year he had 63 for 230 and 4. And it made the difference in a lot of games. Longest run, 16 yards. So, I mean, that, then you include the sack totals, and that makes it all look messier than it actually is to some degree. But, I don't know if we're in an era now where, agents are telling players to not run as much to preserve their bodies for the NFL and I'm not saying that's the case with Sawyer, but just in general, this is 2 stories from the same league where everyone's puzzled and can't get a clear answer on why a guy's not running the football. And it's just okay, the coach whose job it is to win games is clearly not telling the guy to do the thing that could help you win games. He's not saying don't do that. So somewhere, it's either trying to hide a health issue because you don't want the other team to know you're banged up, like Utah with Devin Dampier allegedly.
And was not on the injury report.
That's a whole nother thing. But I don't know if it's that and you're just trying to disguise that because you don't want teams to really rev it up and hit your quarterback because they know he's weakened or what. But I tell you what, it's going to cost them some jobs if they're not careful. He'll be fine. But losing games like they did on Saturday night wasn't all down to him running. That was turnovers more than anything.
Yeah, you have he got sacked a lot against Auburn, but he's had 11 carries in the last 3 games for 22 yards, and some of the sacks against Arizona State.
But whatever
we'll
it
ask
is,
Phil Bennett about it here in the next segment.
Yeah, I know. But whatever it is they're now in a hard place where they're 2-2. So all this big time NFL, I'm tired of hearing about the NFL quarterback thing. I said that as much as probably anybody during the offseason. But after the game against was it SMU, all this Heisman talk, he's been okay the last couple of games since the Heisman talk started. The Heisman talk needs to go away for a little while before we start to revisit that. So, let's get to Phil, and he can fill us all in. But,
he did look erratic even against Samford, and it carried over after having 800 and some yards in 2 games. So we'll get to Phil Bennett on that. Also, what happened? And Dave Aranda mentioned it, but what happened when they had Arizona State 3rd and 13 inside their 10, and then a guy was running free like he was back there fielding a punt? His thoughts about the scheme and more and other games. He's next. Phil Bennett, This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. So many of you that watch or view our show on YouTube or Twitter, and those who are in the chat room, there's a handful, a nice chunk of people that have had some issues with their back. I've gone through my story too, that are going through treatments and whatever else. So if you have a pain that an x-ray has not discovered or been able to give your doctor, orthopedic surgeon, or otherwise any evidence, IdealMRI.com is a business located inside the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco, on the south part of Waco, just off I-35. I have been in their imaging machine. State of the art. This is a phenomenal MRI machine, an imaging machine. They now even do full scans. But when it comes to a doctor wanting to see, maybe it's your elbow, knee, back, shoulder, whatever it might be, they will find it. They will take pictures of it. They will put the images up in the portal for you to see and your doctor to see, and they'll do it for $497 or less. Not the full body scan. That's a different animal. But $497 or less. The average MRI around the country is usually around $1,100, if not more. Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners, the other owners, have done an incredible job of setting that up. It is worth the drive from Houston or Dallas or San Antonio, Austin, or 3 to 4 hours away to save hundreds of dollars, and you will get the pictures your doctor needs so he or she and you can then go through the diagnosis and figure out what is the next part. What's the treatment? Is it physical therapy? Is it surgery? What does it need to be? IdealMRI.com.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com. This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Waiting to connect with Phil Bennett. I know he was at that. I think he was at the Baylor game. In fact, I know that for sure because somebody sent me a tweet that they were sitting next to him. So we're waiting on Phil Bennett. Here is the winner of the North Star Funding Partners Visa $100 gift card for week number 5. It's technically week 5. Dave Loveroot of Salem, Virginia, had a 3-way tie, but he won the tiebreaker. There are the overall standings. Now, we're going to update those in about a week or two when there are enough games that others who missed a week or two can put on their platter, because you could be 7-3 and only have played 1 week. You'd like lead at 70%.
I've played 2 weeks.
I know. That's why your number's up there. I'm waiting to get probably 2 more weeks of 10 games, and then we have a better idea, and we'll go by percentage of winning. But there we are, both Paul and Craig in good shape, but just not enough games, so I put up the standings. So, Dave Loveroot, thank you. Congratulations. I put that piece of mail in the mail today, with the Visa gift card. So enjoy that at 8-2, and congratulations on the others. But the tiebreaker, Dave was able to win that. We'll have the 10 games up. We'll have that up by sometime either tonight or tomorrow for you to look at.
On that one, I picked Indiana to beat Illinois and Texas Tech to beat Utah.
Did you really?
Our 5 pick. Yeah, because I had more time to think about it. So I had like a couple extra days. So I sat there and let my flip-flopping go on, and then ultimately sided with those teams. And I had different picks for a different gimmick, but that one was way better than the handful of games we did last Tuesday or whenever that was.
I missed Illinois, Indiana, and I missed Baylor, Arizona State.
Yeah.
Dumb pick.
No, it was. I mean, they lost by a field goal at the end of the game after 3 turnovers.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a dumb pick.
I look at them, though. And then I also missed, I don't know who the other one was that I missed. I think I did pretty well. But 7-3, I got all the other ones right, so I'm not sure why I was not 8-2. But oh well. All right, now some other stories. The Big 12 has released the games coming up this week and kick times. And of course, they do that a lot of times. They have to hold a little bit and try to figure out who is playing whom based on what's going on with who's playing pretty well or not, and also obviously the games that are coming up and where they're being played. One game that I saw, the Kansas State game against Baylor, is an 11 o'clock kick at McLean Stadium, and it's on ESPN+.
Oh, there'll be 10 people there.
Now, okay, I am not going to go down the rabbit hole. I've done this now in this area for 15 years. Here is a picture of McLean Stadium. Garrett Ross was sitting with me in the press box, 6:30 or so kick. That's a picture of the stadium. Now, the reason it's not wider, it wouldn't make much of a difference. There's some Baylor freshmen and all that. That is ridiculous. I'm not going to get into who does what, how big the school is, who loves football, who doesn't. That is ridiculous. And that's why I know there are games in the past where they've had great home field advantage and whatever else, but not a good look at all. Now, you just lose to Arizona State, bang, bang game. You have Kansas State, 11 o'clock, ESPN+. I've heard all the arguments, but this right here against the defending Big 12 champions, I was like, what is going on? But then again, I've asked that question for 15 years.
Yeah, I think it's just a sign of, in some cases, fans having a legitimate reason for not wanting to drive in, because the first thing you'll hear when you have these conversations, we speak from experience, is that, all the alumni don't live here. Okay, well, that's fair enough and understood. So it's not feasible, or people just don't want to spend the money to drive in from Dallas and Houston, primarily Austin as well, and so on and so forth, to come watch them lose another big home game, which is kind of what Dave Aranda has allowed to formulate, because they don't win home games, especially big ones. They win the occasional, that's an obvious, you're going to win that game. They win those types of games, but any ones that are really in doubt, they've lost majority of them over the last 2-3 years. And so this was another one where it's set up. It's a Saturday night. They got all the gimmicks out and the uniforms, and defending Big 12 champion. And I got that picture. I wish I could say I was shocked. I wasn't. I was definitely disappointed, though, because it's just really unfortunate that it's turned into this, or has been this way for quite a while now. And I'm I'm not really keen on having the same conversation over again. I already know all the responses to everything that I will say. And so people just aren't, let's just put it this, let's just boil it down to it. People are not invested in this program right now the way they need to be turning up and turning out on a Saturday night for the defending Big 12 champions. So I don't know if that's something you fix with a coaching change or simply it's just winning more games. That would certainly help. But yeah, the fan base is at a crossroads, I feel like, and I don't know really how to get back to where you want to be right now if you're Mack Rhoades and company, other than just doing the obvious thing of winning games. And even then, we've seen them do that, and it doesn't make a big bit of difference for certain weekends. It's not like that's the end-all, be-all answer either. So I think this – I noticed the last couple of years, it's just the fan base is in a weird spot. It's in a weird spot, and I don't know how exactly to describe it, but – they were rolling along after 21, and then NIL hits and changes the entire game. And I do want to say this. I saw like 1 or 2 tweets on Saturday night. Like, if you're calling for Aranda to be fired and things like that, I mean, that's been going on for like 3 years now. I mean, there's people that have done it 3 years ago. There's people that would have done it the year after they won the Big 12 title because they didn't follow it up with enough oomph. And so, like, at this point, I don't blame anybody that's saying that, because while it might have been premature 2 or 3 years ago, at this point, like, okay, like, you've got 6 seasons of evidence of kind of who you are and what you're going to be. And you feel like every year you're just kind of like, you don't know what you're going to be. And that's a frustrating thing. But yeah, I saw this comment. Tech fans will love this. Should have hired Joey McGuire. All right, that was definitely an opinion of some people at the time. There were people that wanted Joey McGuire because, believe it or not, people just want the Texas high school good old boy head coach no matter what the reasoning is. And so there was that appeal. There's also people who love Joey, and for good reason. He's a perfect choice to lead a program like Baylor, just like he is for Texas Tech. So all that very much made sense if you were somebody that wanted them to go that direction. And then obviously they go the Aranda direction, which was much different. They go from like charismatic Texas guy to, I mean, like quiet, bookworm, like Californian guy. And so it really threw people for a loop. But hey, they won the Big 12 title, so at least you kind of put that to the wayside for a while. But now, especially, it's rearing its ugly head again because Joey's now out at Texas Tech having this success. That remains to be seen, like how much success it'll be this year, but it's trending in a really good direction. Can we just say this one thing, whether you believe it or not? To sit there and act like he's in the same situation had he stayed in Waco, NIL-wise and fan-wise, is preposterous and ridiculous. Like, that's not comparing apples to apples. That's apples to oranges. So if you want to say that they should have picked Joey to be the head coach 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that's totally fine. You're not alone. There's a lot of people. But to act like it's just Joey's just coaching the hell out of Tech and it's not also the fan base investment, the school investment, and those types of things also helping Texas Tech out, I think would be disingenuous. Because I know one thing, that place would have been packed the F out if that was in Lubbock, Texas on Saturday night.
It's always packed in Lubbock, Texas.
Exactly my point.
It doesn't matter if it's at 11 o'clock, 2:30, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 40 degrees, 89 degrees, or 104 degrees.
Or if they were 2-8, or they were 3. Eventually you get to a point like the end of the Matt Wells era where even Tech fans are like, we're out. Like, but even still, they're still showing up for everything no matter what. You're dealing with a totally different fan base, so that's not even comparable. And I also think that Joey pre-NIL, with all due respect, is different than Texas Tech post-NIL. Does that make sense? Like, they are a completely different program based on that alone. So it's not like he would just be sitting in Waco with the same amount of money that they're doling out to Dave Aranda and landing 5-star after 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. So I just don't think it's a completely black and white comparison for those two major reasons. I think he would have had a lot of success here, but I don't think you're going to be landing number 1 recruiting classes every year and doing the type of thing that they're doing, because I don't think the level of investment would have been the same here. Well, so it's unique in that way.
You say the level of investment. I know what you're talking about when it comes to NIL, because we discussed this, and I even asked Mack Rhoades about it, and they waited about a year and a half too long and then maybe even 2 years, and it was playing catch up. Remember when they were trying to save their roster after that 3-9 disaster? And then all of a sudden, there were people who stood up and said, hey, this has got to change. But it was a year or a year and a half after most everybody else did not take advantage of the transfer portal after 21 at all. And even was that a year or two behind, but I digress.
So
but there
I'm
is a
saying
commitment because of the facilities.
There's people that are investing, and there's people that are doing all they can, but they don't have it to the level that Texas Tech currently has it, led by Cody Campbell. Right? That's my point. Like, had he been the head coach, Joey McGuire, they'd probably have maybe won a Big 12 title or two. But that doesn't mean they're landing like every other week's a new 5-star that's rolling in. I think that's unique to where he is now and the space and time that we're in now. I don't think that would have been a given. So to say like, well, if he was here, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. And so you might be having some of those guys roll down here, but I don't think he would be to the level. I think that he's the perfect guy at the perfect time and the perfect era for Texas Tech football. He would have been really, really good in Waco, very successful. But like, even if you want to take the NIL piece out of it and say, hey, if we had Joey, like this guy would have donated $10 million and maybe you would have made up for it. Okay. I won't argue with you on that, but it's just something that definitely stands out right now when you're comparing the two rosters, for example. So, okay, take that out of the equation. That's fine. The fan thing, you cannot argue with me about whatsoever. So I'm not even going to sit there and try to pretend like there's a counter argument to that.
There's always an excuse. There's always an excuse. There is a commitment because of the facilities, and somebody brought that up, I think UT parking, with what they have. There's absolutely many people. You wonder about Jeremy Fudge and the GXG that came they came flying in to try to help, and it worked for a little bit. But and he's kind of like, I'm not comparing him to Cody Campbell. He's an incredibly successful businessman with all the money he would ever need. But it was almost as if, God, man, someone's got to do this. And they tried, and they've had some success, but it's not nearly the same.
Yeah, and this is not a knock on like Baylor supporters and people that are spending money. I'm not saying they're not getting money or anything like that. I'm just saying that Texas Tech had the perfect billionaire oil guy to lead the way, round up everybody else involved, because before anybody has to say it, I know they've got multiple billionaires and multiple millionaires, but he's kind of the face of the whole thing with the right coach at the right time and the right attitude. And like, so maybe that would have been what it would turn into if he had been the head coach at Baylor for 3 or 4 years, then he could have rallied everybody as well. But to just say like, oh, well, that would be happening here if he was here, I don't agree with that. That's my whole point.
He could inspire a lot of people, could get them going. But at the same time, Aranda's beaten him twice in Lubbock, and it was like he got that win. But where they are now, Craig's got the Mojo rankings on Wednesday. I can't wait to see them. But that picture of McLean Stadium is a part of the Mojo rankings. And so one of the great traditions they have, there's Kim Coulter. Tell me how many recruits want to play in a half-empty stadium? Nobody.
That's a lot of what I'm saying here, man, is like, if you want to even take the investment piece out, because they do have new facilities over here. They're very, very nice. New indoor, new offices, everything. Finished it about the same time Tech finished their big project. They don't need to do it exactly. So that's all similar on board. You're kind of like splitting hairs, and it kind of depends on the type of guy you are. But yeah, that right there, like that's inarguable. And so that's where I'm coming from, is it's just a different level of support. And I don't think that necessarily it's just a matter of, well, if we had done this, it'd all be the exact same way it is out there. No, I don't agree with that. So I just think that's kind of a lazy comment. If you want Aranda gone, that's one thing. If you think he should be gone, that's another. And I can understand where you're coming from. But I don't think it's as simple as, well, if Joey was here, then he'd be landing the number 1 portal class and the number 1 Big 12 class, and then, this and that, and the stadiums would be packed. I don't know. I find that hard to believe. So I understand that part of that's just kind of coping as well. When you're seeing the guy who you could have had having so much success or seeming to be on the precipice of so much success, and you're kind of stuck in a rut, you go, what could have been? And I totally get that. But I just don't think it's as easy as saying, oh, well, that would have been this way here just if we had done that. I think there's different factors, like a Cody Campbell factor, like the support factor when it comes to not the investments, but the actual showing up and showing out. And you know what? Part of that, I will say, is on Dave Aranda. Because when you have had the opportunity to pack the place out, and it's been close enough to be that type of a game, you've typically fallen short. I just think now, though, you've given that
what's
to be a very convenient excuse to everybody to just now say, we're not showing up at all no matter what now.
Baylor has had over the years. I remember when Paul told me this back when I first got around, and of course they couldn't sell out Floyd Casey, whatever. But again, TCU had their largest student ticket surge for the game against SMU. That's great, but we know there are certain schools that struggle. This is about, I want to, there, by the way, Phil Bennett is not going to be on today. That I just saw. It's, to me, I don't want to call it a front running crowd, because there are some passionate fans, people who spend a lot of money, who do drive in from elsewhere. But it is, if they ever have a big moment, and they more often than not, they don't win. I remember Paul telling me about that, whether it was game day when KU or Texas were in town in basketball. That changed under Scott Drew. He does an amazing job and has. There were times, no matter the coach, when they've had huge crowds. But it can't just be when it's hip. It can't just be when you are, because you're 7-1 and ranked in the top 10.
But you
2-7, 12-2, 6-7, 3-9, 8-5, and now 2 big home games, and you lost 3 of them. You lost 2 of the 3. You lost to Auburn, and you lost to Arizona State. The game with Sanford, okay, that's just a game.
And before we get you're complaining, this is not directed at the fans or anything like, I mean, it is to some degree, but it's not like, you bastards, you're not, it's none of that. No. It's like, I'm not even going to argue it. I'm used to it. I've got 10 years worth of evidence. There's no counter argument to what I'm saying. I've seen it all. I've seen the good teams, the bad teams. I've seen the crowds. Like, I just know how it works here. And so just as much as kind of the wishy-washiness versus what you get at Texas Tech, for example, is why it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. The other part of it is it's not just all on the fans either. It's that Dave Aranda has let them down when they have showed up and showed out, to the point where now you're like, I'm not going to drive all the way there because they're going to lose to Arizona State in a big game on Saturday night. You just know it, because that's what they do at this point in big home games. So it's a problem that's been created for multiple reasons over the last few years, and one where people seem to think the solution is a change. And I don't know what any other alternative solution is outside of just winning games. I mean, those are really the only two.
And even sometimes
that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, you would not believe the amount of things. It's a beautiful fall day. I've got to be at the pumpkin patch. Like, I can't. Like, it's just different.
You know what it is? Either you're a football fan base or you're not.
Well, I mean, I've said for a while now, going on 2 or 3 years, and I think I said this on the show as early as last week, and this is also not a knock. It's just flat out truth. The biggest issue they face is just simply they are small. Like, there's like, that's and that's a difference that you can't.
And TCU faces the same issue.
TCU wins a lot of games. They have some of the worst crowds you've ever seen. So it's by no means just to like this problem here and this problem alone. It's like, no, TCU should have sellouts. They were in the freaking college football playoff 3 years ago. They should have sellouts every week for the next 5 years. So it's I think partially also just being small. Whereas with Texas Tech, you have big classes. I mean, a lot of students and a lot of alumni, and that certainly helps that they're also very rabid alumni as well. So that plays into their favor, and that's something that you're not going to just create by winning football games. You'd have to change the functions of the school, right, to accommodate tens of thousands of new fans, and they're just built differently than that. So that also plays into it. But that's why you had a stadium that's 45,000 seats, right? Like, that's what you took into account so that you wouldn't have empty stadiums. But, yeah, when you're at a point where I've seen the wishy-washiness at times. There's hardcores that are there every week, no matter what. They're 0-10. They're there for week 11, and I respect the hell out of that. I know not everybody's capable of doing that, but it's just when you're in a place like they're in, where they're 2-2, and it's another big loss on a big stage and a big home game. It's just like.
But it was technically a big stage, but even at the game, you didn't think you could have thought it was Sanford.
Right. But that's where I'm just like, man, I don't know what you do, right? You're 4 games in, you're 2-2, and you don't have a whole lot of energy back in the program right now based on those couple of losses. Sort of like the Big 12 is sort of on the back burner unless you go on a run now. And I think most of it, and this happens often as well, it's like when TCU made their playoff run or when so-and-so is doing this, you also have the element of like, it's not just that we're bummed about us, but look at what Tech's doing. Look at what TCU's doing, and that amplifies your feelings of being pissed off at Aranda and wanting to change, or feeling like the program's going the wrong direction. I don't know. Like, he's just good enough to keep his job, and then just bad enough to have everybody wanting to lose it. And they're just in this weird middle ground where I don't know if you ever just boost yourself out of that permanently and go win 2, 3, 4, 5 winning seasons in a row, or if this always is going to be this constant up and down. But clearly it's had some effect on the fan base. And they're just in a bit of a pickle right now as far as where people's ambitions and positivity are at when it comes to the program.
Sikkim 365 did tweet this. I guess, I don't know, this might have been over the weekend. After the game, Baylor is now 4-12 against Power 4 schools at home since 2022, 1-9 in big home games during that stretch. Now, some of those games of those losses were when they were 3-9, and we didn't know what was going to go on with the program or what was going to happen with Aranda. They have been to they've been to a bowl 3 of the last 4 years, including 4 of the last 5, including the Big 12 title. And I think there are some expectations because of 12-2 and because of the years when they had teams that were knocking on the college football playoff door, that they were going to be that way forever. And there's going to be the argument, well, they could have been had they not gone through what they went through and Browse and all that. Okay, that's 10 years ago.
That's another part of the problem, but we'll just not even delve into that.
That's a scar that's going to be there. And for some fans forever, no matter what, they could go 14-15 or 18-0, maybe they would come back. But it's weird because there always seems to be, this is not to take shots at the fans. You either have so much money or you don't. You either have so much time or you don't. But there's always, no matter the kickoff time, there's always a reason why it's too early, it's too late, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too whatever. And that's what they have dealt with. Here's another thing I'd like to say. Each summer, I normally contact the Baylor Athletic Department, and I say, back when we were the flagship, we had tickets, we give them away. When we started this podcast, we're not the flagship, and we're love who we are. But I would send an email out, do you want to have any tickets that we put together your ticket number, and we have tickets to pass along? Let's say whoever you might be. Our audience is everybody in the Big 12 in their cities, along with others. And the response has been rather laissez-faire. This past summer, I sent the same email, except I said, don't give us tickets, but do you want to at least purchase time where your ticket number is up on the screen, whether it's Arizona State or Texas Tech or whoever? And I was told, no, they weren't interested in that. That picture right there, 20 extra tickets or 100 extra tickets, or not wanting to sell tickets to the opposing fan base. If they want to be here, they'll buy the tickets from Baylor fans who have tickets. At times it confuses me. That picture, and Sanford, fine. The Auburn game was packed, but even there were a few empty seats there. That ticket for Arizona State at 6:30 on a Saturday when the weather was gorgeous, I just couldn't help it. And Garrett, you took the same picture, and you and I were sitting right next to each other.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that people can't afford to be at every game. And again, there are a lot of out-of-towners. But, ultimately that game came down to turnovers. Josh Cameron with just totally uncharacteristic couple of fumbles. And then Sawyer Robertson with a very untimely interception that sets Arizona State right back up to score points again. Defense played their ass off to try to keep that game within reason while the offense just fumbled all over itself, basically. And then eventually what happened is exactly what I was sitting there telling people that I was next to. I said, you watch this. Their defense is hanging in there, but they're going to break at some point because they're going to have to. Like, they're going to have to break at some point. They're not going to be able to keep this up the entire 4 quarters, but you watch what's going to happen. This offense is going to finally go take the lead, and then what will happen is immediately afterwards, the defense will then cave in. And what happened? It's exactly what happened. Defense held and held and held, and finally the offense holds onto the football and scores, and then immediately the defense gives up a touchdown to lose the lead. Like, immediately afterwards, I just like, oh my God, I could see that coming from 10 miles away. And they had an opportunity to win that game, multiple opportunities, and could not hang on to the football and couldn't get that one last stop, even though they'd gotten a bunch of stops. And that was a loss that you just wonder how much it comes back to maybe hurt them or not in the long run. But it wasn't a game that was just like, oh, man, Arizona State's just clearly so much better. It was, damn, you had a chance to win that game, and you let it go. And that was just, I don't know what was going on. Josh Cameron's a great player. They've won a lot of games because of him. And that was just a bad timing for him to have a bad night on Saturday.
Yeah, he did. And then the 3rd and 13 from inside the 10. And Aranda and in the post game mentioned it was blown coverage. Is that because the players don't know what they're doing? Like the Cowboys yesterday, professional players on a Sunday that had like 7 to 8 big time plays. Is it because of the scheme? Is it because of who they are, who's running the scheme? I don't know. But it was the
absolute worst time to have a blown coverage was in that very single moment.
Overtime.
The very worst moment to have a blown coverage was right when they decided to have a blown coverage and give up this massive long pass play when Arizona State was down to like their last chance. And that just is, I think, really kind of almost the perfect, I guess, way to just sort of continue this story on along of this chapter of it just being very up and down and seemingly always walking away from McLean Stadium feeling disappointed about the win that you let get away or the win that you didn't get at home. And so for the people that were looking for any reason to not show up, now you've given them reasons not to for when they have. And I think it's going to take not just another win, but it's going to take a couple or 2 or 3 wins to get people like to rev back up. And then, the moment that they lose that next game, like it's all just on for nothing. And so it's a bad yo-yo to have going on right now.
Up and down the roller coaster, like the record has been. By the way, that game on Saturday, 2 weeks, 11 o'clock kick, I don't even know what that's going to look like. A note, Phil Bennett, I can share this with you. He had some work on his neck that he's been dealing with, like a lot of us we've talked about. And so that's why, and I got a text from him Saturday. He was at the game at Baylor, Arizona State. Remember, he coached at both places. Do you have, I don't know, Brandon, I'm putting you on the spot here. I know we have a couple more things to get to. A text from Daniel Acton that I sent on Sunday afternoon at 4:48 about a fan that was in the stands and who he realized he was sitting next to. It came from one of our viewers in Daniel Acton. So Paxton brought this up. Before you go to that, hold on. Paxton brought this up, and others have too. We've had Mac Rhodes on. We used to have Mac on 35 to 40 times a year. He's in the college football playoff committee and all that. We get him 3 to 4 times if we're fortunate. That's fine. We liked having him a lot. He was great. But when we've asked him about alcohol, he said, no way. Other schools that had said they would never sell alcohol have understand in this day and age of the House settlement and the money and the revenue sharing and all that, they've changed their minds, whether they're an 80,000 seat stadium or one that's a private school of 40.
Yeah. I mean, we miss having Mac on. I mean, like we've kind of like not intentionally, but sort of distanced intentionally or not away from a lot of the old coverage we used to do. And that's some of their choice, and that's fine. Believe us, we love having free Saturdays in some cases, but I do wish we had Mac on more often. I wish we had Aranda on occasionally, but we haven't had him on in a really long time outside of like your typical media day setup, but that's okay too. But when it comes to Mac, especially this year, him on the playoff committee, it's understandable. But when we did have him on not that long ago, I guess in terms of his appearances, we did ask him about that, and maybe I just didn't do a good enough job of spreading the message out on social media or what have you. But he said at the time, like, yeah, we're not selling alcohol. There's no plans to sell alcohol. We're never going to sell alcohol. And then I guess there was a follow-up here recently because this was from Jackson Posey, who writes for the Lariat and also another Lariat writer. Linda Livingstone was asked about it, and she said, we don't have any plans to start selling alcohol at our athletic events. So they're still standing by that. And yeah, that is definitely another factor you can add into why maybe it's not the place that is able to bring in people and have them stay and pack the place, is because it's not as fun because there's not alcohol. I don't know. I mean, it definitely I don't think would hurt the experience overall, although I'm sure it could in some ways outside the stadium.
Well,
but
they also have.
It doesn't help, is what I'm saying. It doesn't help.
They also have had something I always remember people telling me this, the tailgating outside. That's another story. There's always something. But that if you go to the game and you leave during the game, and I would think there are many others that have this same policy, but if you leave the stadium during the game, halftime or otherwise, you're not getting back in.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy is they hold concerts there and have recently, and they sell alcohol at the concerts. Yeah. So concerts, cool. Baylor game, no, we can't do that. So that's also revenue you're missing out on. That's potentially a linebacker that you could use that you're not able to scrounge together the $500,000 or $1 million that you would make in alcohol sales. But that's neither here nor there. Disappointing showing. Definitely a disappointing loss. We'll, I guess, tomorrow really run down most of the actual Big 12 results here.
Yeah, we will.
But yeah, that was a good win for ASU. That really wasn't a super impressive performance, but they went and took it at the end, and they stole a win on the road. Yep. And that was a good win for the Sun Devils and Kenny Dillingham. So good on them for that. And for the Bears, yeah, it's another disappointing loss, and you're going to have to pull teeth to get people to keep showing up.
I will be interested on 2 Saturdays from now. From BU Bear in the chat, the crowd wasn't the problem. The crowd was more than fine. The problem is when the crowd was at their most, their loudest, the defense gives up a blown coverage on 3rd and 13. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But by then the crowd, there was not much. And you have to also help get your crowd engaged by winning and making big plays and being fun to watch.
Right. This also gets into, it's not exactly like, oh, people are showing up, that's the only problem. Like, no, it's like, this is when we have the exhausting, like 10th conversation in the last 10 years about game day and like how they run that and everything, which I have no interest in doing that. I understand, fully well aware of all the intricacies of it. And yes, the biggest one to repeat is not the support or not even the game day stuff. It's the winning at home, so that you reward your fans for showing up. So I totally understand, but I know what it was like when they were winning at home, and it was still like pulling teeth sometimes to rev people up for games. Yeah. That's my point. Now, when you do rev them up and then you bring in the Auburn game, new uniforms, this and that, get excited, you blow it. Couple weeks later, Arizona State rolls in, get excited, you blow it. That's ultimately what kills any momentum you can build up. And I think we're seeing the effects of that. And I think like the way we started this conversation, just big picture discussion is it's not little one thing going wrong. It's just a weird place that they're in right now as a whole, where the fans are like, they're 1 foot in and they'd love to be 2 feet in, but you're not giving them a reason to be 2 feet in. Right. And it's just it's a matter of where are they going, and where is this whole just thing pointed? And I think they've got a chance to still be a good football team over the course of this season. I think they're going to be competitive in every game the rest of the way. There's nobody on the schedule that you don't think that they can beat, but that was a downer, and it was primarily because of turnovers on Saturday night more than anything, and a blown coverage if you want to throw that in there as well. But can't have your star receiver fumbling twice, can't have your star quarterback get the ball back after your defense makes a play and then throw it right back to the offense and give them an easy field goal. I mean, that's what cost them on Saturday night.
I mentioned TCU's crowds, and of course they were lit up with, I don't know what the attendance was, but the student section was like the largest they've had in forever, or if not all time. I don't know. Retired stockbroker. By the way, Houston didn't sell out their game for Dion on a Friday night.
No.
BU. Let me read a couple of these. BU Bear. As a loyal fan who makes games from out of town, going 0-9 in meaningful home games over the last years doesn't help. We've said that. I 100% agree.
That's the biggest issue.
Exactly.
That's the biggest issue.
It's astonishingly bad performances. Fans have been fine. I know what my eyes have seen and heard and all the other things over 15 years. I love your loyalty and appreciate your comments, but I will agree to disagree with the fans being fine. And this is not to take advantage or hurt anyone's feelings, but we know and we have seen the evidence, whether they're really, really good or not, other than a stretch of about 5 years back in the 2010s.
Yeah, it's a very long conversation that started with really boiling down to having a big game on a Saturday night and the stadium not being packed out like it would be in a lot of other places. And I don't do the whataboutism thing, but yes, TCU, Houston, they all have their problems. They're very similar. Small Texas schools that all have that in common. So it's not a matter of, hey, it's whoever 90,000 are showing up. Like, totally understandable. Have outlined there's a lot of alumni living out of town, all that. Just saying, you look at that on Saturday night and the result that is not promising to bring anybody else back and make that any better the next time we see them in McLean Stadium. That's where the biggest issue lies. But ultimately, all of it leads to a place of people just not knowing where this program is or where it's going and wondering what the future holds for it and whether the future needs a change to rev everybody back up, or if it's going to get better with more time or what. But I just know there's a lot of angst I saw on Saturday night, and it's not surprising.
We've seen
starting with the losses at home.
We've seen it 2-7, 3-9, 12-2, and other times. Do you put that picture back up one more time, Brendan? Because BU Bear, in fact, those empty seats are the ones or two areas, the main areas where the visiting fans sit. No, I know where the visiting fans sit. They sit in the north end zone, upper deck, or they sit in the southeast end zone on the kind of off to the side. The band is there in the main core. BU Bear, we appreciate your loyalty, but we're not stupid. And we've been to enough games. And look at that picture if you have it again, Brandon. There are thousands of seats. Not just the 500 or 1,000 that you get, 1,500 because you're a visiting. And Arizona State didn't have a lot of fans, but you heard them, of course, especially at the end of the game when they made the big play.
Yeah, man,
and
don't feel like
game.
this is some personal attack, because it's not. Talking about the overall place of where the program finds itself, and all started by seeing people go, we should have hired Joey McGuire 6 years ago. And my whole thing was, well, it's not apples to apples, because NIL is much different than it was at that time period when you would have been making that hire. The setup in Lubbock is different than the setup in Waco, and the fan support is different than it is in Waco. They simply have more fans. They pack their stadium out more often and have more alumni living in Lubbock. And I've experienced both. I've lived both places, been to both places, and I know that there's a difference. But that's not a personal attack on Baylor fans, so don't take it that way. But to sit here and don't gaslight us and say there's no issues whatsoever when it comes to that. We're laying the blame at the feet of the losses, and that's at the feet of Dave Aranda.
Okay, yes. The left side of that screen, the upper deck, is where a lot of the fans who visit, and it actually doesn't even show that area. Everything else, you can see the numbers, you can see the tickets.
I mean, actually, that looks better than a lot of other times I've seen it, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's scattered out. One thing is this, one thing I wanted to say on this is you are in a position where the way the college football and athletics has changed, I know there's a commitment from the school, the university, the athletic department, and others. We know how they feel, but you have to be very careful right now, and you better somehow figure it out, whether it's with the coach, the staff, and we like a lot of those guys, we know them, or how you do what you do the next few years, because there are other changes still to come.
And that's really where my whole point in this entire conversation was of like, you're in a weird spot where it's not as simple as, oh, we should have made this hire and it'd be different. Okay, you didn't, and now you're not. So here's where you are. You're in a very yo-yo situation with your head coach of 6 years. You've just lost another big home game in prime time, and you're 0-1 in the Big 12 and 2-2 in the year. The playoffs are toast, basically. They'd need to win out to make the playoff. So that's now out of the way. Sawyer Robertson has not played like a Heisman Trophy contender the last couple of weeks. So that's out of the way. So where do you find yourselves? And I feel like they find themselves in this weird spot right now where I don't know where it's heading, but I do know that, yeah, there's a little bit of danger of like, if they don't get their S together here pretty soon and get on track, then you're not in a position of where you're just invited to the next party no matter what. Of like, yeah, you better get your ducks in a row, and the support better be there financially, attendance-wise, so on and so forth. Now, it's on the school to make that happen and to make the brand and product exciting, but it is a problem that I think that they need to be at least mindful of. That's the biggest point of all of it.
All right, when we come back, so Paul's not here today. He's supposed to be back tomorrow. Phil Bennett again, because of the procedure that he had, not available today, and we just crossed paths on that. Here, the Daniel Acton tweet to me during the game. So, you got it, Brandon? So I get this. This is during the game, and I don't know what part of the game. Let's see. No, this was actually yesterday afternoon. After the game, Baylor hosting Arizona State. You have it? I'll read it. I'll read it. David Smoak, thought you'd appreciate this since y'all talk to Coach Bennett every Monday. This is a Facebook post from the wife of a high school friend of mine. She's a Baylor grad. Her husband, Cade's an A&M grad, and their oldest is a Baylor student. What she said is that she's sitting in the seats watching this game with a gentleman. She thought his face was familiar, talking football. He was great to talk with, helping me with all of this. It was Phil Bennett sitting next to her. And then they passed it along to Daniel Acton, who is also a viewer of 365 Sports. I bet he was great to whoever was sitting next to him, and also in appreciating questions that were asked of him during the game as well. When we come back, the quizzes from Andrew Valade, the poll results too, and this is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
All right, wrapping up this last hour. We're not completely done. Here are some poll results from Andrew Valade. Trivia first. The nickname was given to the infamous 0-0 tie between Oregon and Oregon State in 1983, which remains the last scoreless tie in major college football history. And by the way, Oregon beat Oregon State in the rivalry game on Saturday.
Big shocker there.
The Mud Bowl, the Civil War stalemate, or the Thumb Bowl?
Civil War stalemate, I would think, would be the obvious there since it's the Civil War. But the other ones,
It's
I
not
feel
the
like
other ones. It's not the
yeah,
other ones.
the other
I
ones
saw a
would be
really-
kind of goofy in a fun way. But yeah, the Oregon, I think Oregon State being 7-7 after the first quarter, that was an upset in some ways. And then after that, Oregon eventually ran away with it. But yeah, Civil War stalemate.
Excuse me. I saw a feature, and I don't remember who it was, but they did a feature about the history of the rivalry. And, you think about it, Oregon, the Ducks, Oregon State, the Beavers, very similar in a way. And how this guy put together this, whatever the trophy was. And it was like a platypus or something like that. But there we are, the Civil War stalemate.
Yeah, I think one of the other things.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, learn something new. November 19, 1983, Oregon State slogged through a rainy, mistake-filled game that ended 0-0. The game featured 11 turnovers and 4 missed field goals, with OT introduced in 96 to remain its last scoreless. Okay, cool. What was the question again? Can you go back to that? If at all, I mean, I'm sorry.
The nickname was given to
to the
game,
0-0 tie.
Itself. Yeah. Otherwise,
so that's okay. Well,
it's otherwise known as the Civil War. The rivalry is the Civil War. That game I can understand. The toilet bowl reference. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that learned something new on these trivia questions. That's why it's always fun to do these and to learn at minimum. But I do think there was this kind of reaction I saw on just how different this game feels now, and it's unfortunate, but it's not surprising because of the fact you're not in the same conference any longer, and one school is clearly on this trajectory over here, and this other school's on this trajectory over here. And they're not going the same direction. And there's only space furthering the distance between the two of them. And I think that sucks for the regionality of the sport, which is getting lost by the days. And I think it sucks for the history lovers of the sport. But it's also just time changes things. And that's a rivalry that I think we're seeing the change with. And it's like I talked about last week with looking at Oregon State and Washington State's results, because they're getting ready to play some teams that we're going to be talking about in the non-conference, and just kind of seeing through some of those results of man, in a short amount of time, I think they've taken a bit of a dive talent-wise, and obviously the conference is changing around them, and they're doing the best they can with the hand they've been dealt. But yeah, I think those rivalries are never going to be the same again.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that may continue, but it's unfortunate. It's part of the changes in many ways, like conference realignment. Next one. Dedicated in 1895, the stadium is the oldest still hosting college football games, was the first to feature a scoreboard and broadcast games on radio and also on TV. I don't know this for sure, but I know Franklin Field's a famous stadium that is, in fact, I think hosted Army Navy many, many times. That's in Philadelphia. I'm not sure, Craig, but I don't think it's Kyle Field. I know those other ones have been playing since the late 1800s too.
Yeah, I have no idea on this stadium trivia here. I mean, Kyle Field is certainly the one. This one is not like the others in some ways, just being the big, massive, mega SEC stadium and all that jazz. But I'll defer to you. I mean,
Franklin Field is a gem of a stadium. I do know that it's well over 100 and some years old. I'm going to say Franklin Field.
All right. Franklin Field.
Franklin Field
There
in
we
Philadelphia. Yep. Home of the University of Penn. Oldest stadium still in use. It also has, again, hosted some famous games, including NFL matchups. 120 years, 28% of the 94 who tried to get that right got it right. So there we are with that.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Andrew trying to throw some curveball. We're hitting the fastball. So now he's trying to throw a little slider every once in a while. And Kyle Field, I was just curious, 1927 when that was dedicated. So I guess originally built in 1904, but permanent concrete and really being the Kyle Field we know it to be now in 1927. So the more you know.
All right. Let's go to what else we have. The poll. Which coach are you voting off the college football island the first? And Mike Gundy with a massive 555 votes, first of all. Gundy with more than twice as much as Napier, then Dabo Sweeney and Sam Pittman at 10%.
All right, so we should have no shortage of stuff to talk about tomorrow because we left a lot on the bone today as far as we didn't get deep into the carousel at all. We didn't get into the league scores and all that real in depth with the conference race and everything. So that goes for wherever you're looking, the SEC. I mean, we haven't really dabbled in too many of the results outside of the biggest ones. So we'll get further into it. But, yeah, I think it has to be Mike Gundy. I mean, first of all, the reason why I went on that spiel is just because we're about to wrap it up, and I feel like this makes me realize how much we didn't talk about today that we have for tomorrow.
Okay.
And also reminds me that Dabo's not going anywhere right now. Like Dabo's not going anywhere. I know that's not the question here, but these other three guys are probably being fired. Dabo's not getting fired. The buyout's just way too much, and I don't see it coming into an end like that unless he just out of nowhere has this desire to say, you know what, I'm out of here on my own merit and my own terms. Then that's how that would happen. But otherwise, I think you can book it that he's at Clemson still for the foreseeable future. But the other three, yeah, they're going to have to start packing their bags. And I think Mike Gundy, after this loss to Tulsa, is right at the head of the line. And with our audience, yeah, I'm not surprised at all that he's a leading vote getter. I just don't know, like I said, what it was probably like an hour ago now, but I don't know how you do anything this offseason that inspires any hope. What are you going to change coordinators again? Flip the roster again? What is attracting those players to come play for you right now? So even if you go flip the roster, what kind of players are you even getting? Right? I mean, it's not like you're going to go like Texas Tech and say, hey, man, we got all this money and we just need a few pieces, a couple edge rushers, and we're going to be putting this. Like, there's no plan like that that's in place right now. There's no reason to believe they're a couple pieces away. This thing, unfortunately, looks like it needs to be torn down and built back up after watching on Friday night. And I will say what I said at the very top. If you had told me that Tulsa and Oklahoma State had switched uniforms before the game, I would have believed you because Tulsa looked more athletic and tougher than Oklahoma State did in a lot of ways on Friday night. And that's, I think, as damning as anything else. So great win for the Golden Hurricane. But, yeah, I think for Oklahoma State, I just don't know where you begin to have hope that he's going to turn this around.
And, man, remember what Brett McMurphy told us earlier today. You fire one of these guys now, whoever it might be, or none of them, and the 30-day transfer portal opens up immediately. Yeah. So, and that might be okay. Maybe you don't want all those guys around. But they have 70 new players and all those new coaches, as Barry Campbell mentioned. I think it was Barry. You just, golly, the change. But someone's got to give them some excitement. I hate it's not Gundy. I still hope it might be one day.
I think, at least as of right this very moment after Friday night, there's just not really hope that it's him anymore. And I don't think it's, with all that being said, a situation where you go, yeah, let's fire him this week. No, because, yeah, you stand to lose maybe what you do have on the roster that's worthwhile, although you're going to have to eventually make a move anyways, unless you don't, and then that'll be a shocker because either he won a bunch of games we're not expecting him to, or you're just saying, like, we're just going to roll it out again and just hope for 2026 to be a better year, and then that's really it, which I don't know if your fans have the patience for that. So there's not a lot of winning on the horizon, it appears right now. They won't be favored in probably a single game the rest of the way. It's a bad place to be in. But, yeah, I don't think you're served well by firing him right now. I don't think that changes anything. You at least give him a little bit more time. But he can still be around and the writing still be on the wall. And I think that's where we are right now, at least the way it stands on Monday, September 22nd.
Yeah, we do have a lot that we can get to. Here's the other poll to get to. Do fines actually fix problems like fake injuries or storming the field? Teams see it as a small price to pay. We saw Syracuse beat Clemson. They were feigning injuries. According to the ACC, they were fined $25,000. Field stormings are not going to stop. Yeah, I mean, ADs hope that they do, but you win a big game and you're not used to winning many of them, rivalry or not, the kids are going to want to have a great time and storm the
field. If you got $50,000 for field in the storm fine, storming the field fine.
But the SEC is now what, 500,000?
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money. They're also making millions more than they're also making millions more than they've ever made before. And I would say that when Tennessee tears down the goalpost, for example, after a big win last year, that you also see an uptick in your donations immediately thereafter. So I don't think that the big schools especially are really sweating the fines all that much. Now, if you suddenly made like $1 million, then maybe you're like, and 500,000 is probably making some people second guess it a little bit. But when you're talking about the heat of the moment and upsetting Alabama or whatever and having this opportunity to go rush the field, I don't think anybody's thinking about, but what about the money we'll have to pay? I think that's the last thing on people's minds.
Erica Creech, last thing, we'll close it with you. David, you would know about Franklin Field. You played in that stadium back in the day, and I think you and I dated back then, Eric. I'm just kidding. You are exactly right. I did. I was still born. We have so much to get to, including a lot of games we did chew on, many more we did not. Focus team by team on the Big 12. Tomorrow, I think Joey McGuire, for those who asked if we're going to have him on this week, I believe Joey's going to be locked in with us at some point tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll
dive further into the details on a variety of different games. But yeah, incredible win by Texas Tech. Super impressive stuff. Could not have gone any better outside of, I guess, Baron Morton doesn't get hurt, and even that turned out to be a positive in the long run and maybe even the short term as well. I mean, I'm fascinated by how they handled that. I know they don't have to decide this week with a bye, but at some point, you're going to have to make that decision, and I'm very curious of where they go because they do look like a different team, at least for those couple quarters with Will Hammond in the quarterback one spot versus when Baron Morton was doing his thing. That running element is what is just a total difference in what they're able to attack you with. So great win for Tech, and I think some definitely looking in the mirror for Utah.
Thank you, Brandon Rowe, Garrett Ross. Thank you to Andrew Valet. We're back tomorrow at 3. Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Paul will be back tomorrow. Good night.